Welcome to the 54th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about spring 2018's 11th and 12th week of shows. As per usual, we always have timestamps in the description of the YouTube video and podcast feed if you only want to hear about one or two shows, because we spoil everything. And my name is Leo, and I would like to be known henceforth as Dick Sensei, the poop generator. and with me today are Kat and Bcom.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello there.
I'm doing great.
Dick Sensei, will you please read us our most recent iTunes review?
Damn it.
Yeah, this is your most important performance ever, Leo, so don't fuck this up.
Here we go.
Yeah, because I have been requested to do this in my sexy voice, and I don't even know what that is yet, so... Oh, God. I'll do the description in the sexy voice. So this is from iTunes, and it's from Immortal Turtle. So, first things first, Leo and Kat are both awesome, but I haven't found a host like Bcom whose opinions I agree with more since Andrew and Otaku Spirit. They do give out heavy spoilers, but they bend it doggy style, attach handles on their ass, and dive deep into each episode. Give these guys a listen. You won't regret it. 5 stars.
Yay!
Good job. I don't think that Bcom has ever been more offended.
No, it's just like, I think Andrew from Otaku Spirit and I have very different opinions, so I just thought that was really funny.
So you find it absurd that you're compared to having similar opinions. You're just like blown away. You're like, what?
I'm just stunned. Those guys are interesting. They like lots of moe shows, which I guess Kat thinks that's me, so maybe I do have the same opinions. I don't know.
Oh, but yes, if you are enjoying our podcast, please drop us an iTunes review and we'll read it.
Oh, yeah, baby.
I guess now, even if you ask for a specific voice from a specific host, because that's a thing now.
We'll read it.
Definitely, we appreciate that.
Like.
So, this is the 11th and 12th week of shows, but we do have one podcast coming after this because a couple of shows had 13th episodes, or they just ran long, like a Darling and the FranXX. So,
yes,
we'll be covering those and our like final thoughts and scores in a future episode in about a week from now.
Oh, yes, and be ready for that, because Bcom has a lot to say about Darling and the Franks.
Yes, thoughts.
Yes, I will have a lot
3
to say.
3 pages worth. So there's your heads up.
Yeah, maybe I'll add to that over the course of it. Maybe it'll be like 5 pages worth by then. We'll see.
Okay.
But let's start it off with the finales for a bunch of shows that aired. So, who's got Golden Kamuy? That's you, Leo.
Yeah, Dick Sensei here. This is the boner show.
Master of the dicks.
So, episode 11, everybody get together. It's a murder hotel. I would like to begin the synopsis with, what is this show even anymore?
It's so different from how it started off. Like, it'd be one thing if they kind of just like made it clear this was a comedy in the beginning, but yeah, it's taken such a weird turn from how it started.
It had its funny moments, but this whole episode is like a slapstick comedy. It's hilarious.
It is hilarious. I don't know, like it's half comedy, half violence, which is like the best ever.
Oh yeah, was there any facial harm in this episode?
I don't recall. You'll have to read the synopsis and I'll see if I remember.
This might be the first. I mean, someone does get slapped in the face, but there's no like cuts to the face. So this might be like the most.
Oh, there's also a kick to the face.
Yes, there is that.
Okay, all right. So starting off, hot lady, words I'll soon be regretting, owns an inn where she's clearly killing her guests, and of all people, Ushiyama shows up looking for a room, and God, this show just pulled punches on this one. On the way up, he comments on her ass and how he wants to listen to her sweet voice all night long. Before he flat out says, "Just let me do you" in the room.
Let me do you.
He just like
Has that line ever worked on you, Kat?
I mean, at that point, it's just a little awkward. Especially, like, if you slam your hand into the wall and, like, destroy the wall. I'm going to be a little hesitant. I'm going to be like, I don't know, you might crush me. Like...
Yes, but Lanaga, the mistress, her name gets changed later. I don't know what's going on.
I think it's Ianaga, like I.
Yeah, but early on it was Lanaga.
Oh, really? That's weird.
Maybe that's like her
Yeah,
female
that's
name.
what I wrote down.
Like maybe that's like the female version.
Yeah, that's what I think what happened.
Okay.
But Lanaga, the proprietor, you know, she takes us all very well. Excuse me, takes us all very well, and like even like kind of feels up his arms, and she's like, ooh. And then Sugimoto's group shows up, and that's what gets her away from him. And Shirashi greets her by saying he is single, and if she dated him, she would find him loyal and passionate. So she takes him to the rooms, and the inn is literally a maze. And I'm not using Bcom's favorite word here just for show. It's just the flat out maze. They just do this overview shot. It's crazy.
It reminds me of that board game Clue. Like someone in that writer's room is A, taking too much acid, and B, has played a lot of Clue in their life. I don't know.
Yeah. Lots of like hidden trapdoors and tunnels and
yeah. So as you would assume, there's all these hidden areas that Lanaga can use to spy on everybody. She then plans on weakening Ushiyama with beer and then putting him out with gas so she can use his strong body to create the perfect human. It's also mentioned here that the two prisoner guys, Ushiyama and Shirashi, they remember this doctor when they were in the prison that said that like if you ate a part of an animal, or I guess a human at this point, like the tongue, and you had a weak tongue, you get a stronger tongue, or you had bad eyesight, you get better eyesight by eating eyes. And Lanaga seems to have this same philosophy. So first thing she does is like spring a trapdoor on Shirashi, and we all know she's not going to be able to keep him locked up. So there's that. Joshua gets stopped by Ushiyama, who forces a kiss on her, and she bites his tongue, which only turns him on, and he releases her to go back to helping guests. He's just like, oh, yeah.
Like, steam just keeps coming out of his nose. He's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it didn't help that, like, Lanaga got, like, some of his blood from his tongue on her, like, bottom of her lip, and she just licks it off while like staring at him. It's just like, okay, if that's not an invitation, I don't know what is. Lanaga goes downstairs and like sticks a needle on Shirashi's neck and announces she also wants Asirpa's pretty eyes, is what we find out. In the next scene, Ushiyama, Sugimoto, Nispa, and Asirpa go out for food and drinks, and this turned out to be Bcom's favorite scene in this episode. So why don't you tell us about it, Bcom?
So they're all like really drunk, and like Ushiyama just like decides, I'm going to give a little lecture to Asirpa. I'm going to teach her something that she needs to know for the rest of her life. It's very important. And so she just tells him it's very important when she's looking for men to find the dick of a gentleman.
She's like, I saw a little dick on the beach.
No. First he says, remember.
And Sugimoto's like, hey, you know you get cold. You get small when you're cold.
No, first he's like,
Yes.
remember, in life, the dick is all that matters. And then he tells her to find the dick of a gentleman, which I'm sort of like, does it have a top hat? Is that how you know? Like, you just pull down.
Milady.
Every time you start dating someone, you just pull down their pants and you're just looking for the top hat. You're like, oh, I can't find it.
They've shaved the top hat into the pubes.
Oh, my dick monocle fell out. Damn it. It's so ridiculous how obsessed this show is with dicks, just dicks and dick jokes. It's like unbelievable at this point. Like they just, every episode they top themselves. I'm impressed.
So after all that, Ushiyama goes back to his room and finds the trapdoor. He's drunk as fuck, and they just do this comical picture of like Shirashi like undoing himself, and then Ushiyama just comes crashing straight down. He's so drunk. But then this is where like Shira's like trying to tell him, he's like, I recognize the lady as the one of the prisoners. It was that old dude who was a doctor, and he specifically recognized him because of the mole. So this hot lady proprietor has been an old man this whole time. And so either this doctor has some like extremely impressive skills with makeup, and or plastic surgery because the old picture of him is like he's super old and wrinkly and shit.
Wrinkly,
yeah.
All right, but like you don't know the
or his philosophy about I guess he ate some pretty girl's skin, so he got nice skin again.
I will say the power of makeup is vast if you know how to use it. So maybe that's all it is. I don't know, but yeah. No, also like before he tells him like the proprietress is a guy, like he's so drunk. When he says her name, he immediately thinks that Shiraishi is Lanaga. And he just starts like making out with Shiraishi. And I don't know what he does to Shiraishi, but like when he pulls away, Shiraishi's eyes are just like dead. Like
like he was like licking his chest or something, and then he got sick and puked. But Ushiyama is like still so drunk he doesn't really hear what Shiraishi is saying and just wants to fuck the proprietor anyways and like breaks down a door because of it.
He's like, I'm not leaving this fucking hotel until I fuck this proprietor.
And it's like, he's a man! And he's like, I don't give a shit. Like,
at this point, I'm like, oh god, Lanaga's gonna get the worst and he's actually gonna get fucked by this guy, by Ushiyama. Then we go to Lanaga leaning over Asirpa and like about to lick her eyeball when Sugimoto just fucking kicks her right in the side of the face, flies across the room. That's when she shows up outside the door and he's like yelling at Sugimoto that the proprietor is that doctor person he was telling him about. And then like Lanaga gets away by like throwing needles at Asirpa whatsoever. I guess there was some hand mutilation there. I mean, he caught the needles, straight with the hand. So
true.
Yeah.
Man, then after this, it's just one giant slapstick action scene. Insanity. Ushiyama and Sugimoto get into a judo match with like Sugimoto eventually falling through a trapdoor into the basement where it's filling with alcohol and lights on fire that Lanaga did. Shirashi is also chasing Lanaga and like throwing bombs at him that eventually traps him like under some beams. And it's really funny because he rolls one bomb towards him and he doesn't know it, and he's just like doing that finger thing on the wall like you're shy or something. Did you guys catch that?
I was like, what the hell is this?
But then accidentally Shirashi, whatever, drops his bags of grenades down into the basement. Guess what a bag of bombs do in a fire? And then everybody survives the entire house exploding to smithereens.
Yeah, it is impressive how they all survive like with barely a scratch.
Yeah,
considering the house is completely, there's not even a piece of standing structure left.
Maybe it's all the padding from like those extra walls because of all the like trapdoors and shit. maybe that saved them. I don't know.
This episode was something else.
Yeah. I thought like in the second to last episode of the show they would like start setting up the finale, and I guess they sort of do. I don't know.
Actually, you know what?
Season,
you know what? If Leo is going to be called Shinko Sensei, I feel like we need to call you the dick of a gentleman.
Oh, I'm very happy to be called that.
Dick of a gentleman.
There's plenty of people who would be happy to just have that as my nickname full time.
This is awful.
It's perfect. What do you mean?
Should we move on? Like, there's more craziness.
Kat's got some more to say, I think. No, she doesn't.
Yeah.
She kind of already said all that.
I already said it. I like folded it in.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. His judo ear you wrote down. That did look really weird.
Yeah, it's basically just cauliflower ear. Because I'm like, does something weird happen to people's ears when they do judo? And then I was looking at it and I was like, oh, no. They just mean like what happens when you get punched in the ear a few times.
Actually, it's really common with wrestling also because their heads get rubbed into the mats, and you get cauliflower ear that way also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That
sucks.
But since I've been ruined about this hot lady, I want to hear about a foxy lady now.
All right, the Trickster Fox, episode 12. So literally everybody's still alive after that huge explosion. That's the first thing I know. Was like, what the? Everybody's just fine. Okay. And so Asirpa and crew, they head off to the forest because they need more money for explosives now. because they wasted them in that explosion. I guess not wasted, but they used them.
No,
and
Shirishi did. Only him.
Yeah, Shiraishi did, yeah. And they catch a fox. Like, they catch a fox in, like, a bucket with, like, nails in it. And then, like, Asirpa's like, here's how you kill this fox. And she just, like, beats it to death with a stick. And I was like, oh, PETA, no. But yeah, so, and then they catch some squirrels and stuff, too. Because they need to sell these things for money. So Asirpa has some family living nearby, like extended family. Her great uncle explains that a strange woman who can, quote, see the past and the future is there, and has kind of driven the village mad because they all like want to like get their fortunes read, and like she's been like right every time apparently, so they're going crazy. And her name is Inkarmat. So she reads their fortune by putting a dead white fox's jaw on top of her head and then letting it like slowly drop off the front. And if it lands with its teeth up, it's a good omen. And if it lands with its teeth down, she warns them like, cancel your plans. And so that's what happens. Like it lands teeth down. She's like, you guys should like not do whatever you're doing because you're in trouble. But like Asirpa doesn't believe in Ainu fortune telling and tells them just ignore it. I'm a new kind of Ainu woman or whatever she says. Mm-hmm. So, but Shiraishi, not so much. He was like, let's go to the racetrack in Inkarmat. So they go there and he's like, I'm going to just gamble on horses. Like Inkarmat, like tell me like who the next one is. And like, so when Nispa arrives, after like Shiraishi's been gambling for a little while and winning, he's able to tell which horses have like the best chances for the next race just by looking at them, because he's very familiar with horses from his time during the war, like taking care of like engineer horses and stuff, or engineers' horses. And he's like, so he basically hints that like the fortune teller is just looking at the two best looking horses and like picking one of them and passing it off as true fortune telling. And then we also find out that the workers behind the scenes are rigging these horse races. They're like shoving tubes of powdered viper snake, I guess, up their noses to give them like stamina and energy like before the race starts, and then betting on them basically.
Horse doping.
Horse doping, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so Nispa ends up riding one of these horses because like the jockey who was paired up against this Yakuza-owned horse got really scared because he didn't want to accidentally win. But Nispa's like, oh, this beautiful horse, it really wants to win. I must ride it. So
yeah, this isn't the pretty derby you're used to, Bcom.
No, this is real horse racing. Not nearly as pretty. So Nispa doesn't care. He can see this horse that wins, and he tells them, like, you guys should bet on me. But, like, Shiraishi is too indebted to, like, the fortune teller now, and she tells him, like, no, bet on the Yakuza horse. And Asirpa, like, tries to stop the fortune teller because, like, she goes off to buy a ticket for him. And she tells Asirpa, like, you know, if those guys, like, Sugimoto and Shiraishi had won a lot of money here, they probably would have just left you behind anyway. And so, like, Asirpa takes a minute to, like, think about that. And Inkarmat leaves, but she gives Asirpa the tickets that she bought. And Nispa wins the race, despite the jockeys, like, punching each other off their horses and crazy shit happening during the race.
Yeah.
It was pretty cutthroat. And then it turns out that, like, Inkarmat, like, bought most of the tickets for Shiraishi, like, for the Yakuza horse, but, like, she bet one ticket on Nispa's horse. But it never really, like, comes up later. I guess they got a little bit of money out of that. Maybe it'll come up whenever they get back to this. But the show then like kind of wraps up the season in a little bow in the last couple minutes after all this stuff. Like there's a brief scene where Ogata, guy I've met before, offers to join like Hijikata Toshizo as like his bodyguard or something. And then there's a scene where Shiraishi tells them, like, Ienaga told him of a thief who saw his tattoo skins in a village called Yubari. So that's, like, the next stop on their journey. And then there's, like, an after-credit scene where Surumi and his men are already in Yubari, and they see this, like, shadowy figure approach a graveyard to check, like, a body for tattoos. It was, like, a miner who died or something.
He wasn't checking it for tattoos. He had, like, in his house, he had a bunch of, like, taxidermied humans.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Then they chase this guy into the forest, whoever he is. He's kind of like dark and shadowy. We don't know. And that's it. And then like at the very end, they announced like season 2, October. And it's like, oh, okay. So like this wasn't like a very final episode. It was just kind of like ended in the middle of things. And I guess that makes sense since they're doing a season 2 in October, doing it pretty soon, just a couple months away.
I got the feeling that like they kind of wrapped up a lot of their stuff they needed to do. And then the last 2 episodes are like, well, we can't really start the next arc. Because that would be weird. So, like, we'll just put some random dick jokes in there and, like, find a way.
Because, a lot of this definitely felt like sort of, not like filler, but just like, comedic, like,
oh, it was entertaining.
Adventures and hijinks.
Oh, it was entertaining filler. Like, it was the good kind of filler.
Episode 11.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Episode 11 was pretty hilarious, I have to agree.
Okay, but like, does anyone...
This one, like, I didn't like this one as much, but it was fine. It was whatever.
Does anyone...
I was laughing at Shiraishi.
...understand how Increment tricked Shiraishi? Because, like, I feel like she meant to trick him on purpose, but I can't really tell, like, what the plot was, or, like, if it succeeded, or if she just got lucky. Because I was trying to figure it out.
So, I mean, there are a couple, like, things, like, so, I think, like, Nispa hinted that, like, if you knew a lot about horses, you could probably place bets well. Maybe she also knew that the horses were being doped and could tell that they were.
I was going to say, I thought she might be part of the Yakuza.
That's what I was thinking.
Also, they are.
So she knew which horses were going to win that day, and she was just getting a shit ton of money off of them also, but making them buy all these trinkets.
So I thought she was probably part of the Yakuza. I figured that, but like I didn't really understand how, like if she meant, like, because obviously like the Yakuza horse lost, so I don't know if like she thought it was going to win, but if she thought it was going to win, then like how is she going to trick Shiraishi? You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, she did get out of there as soon as she like gave that bet. Like she left, so she knew she was going to get that one wrong. I guess.
Maybe. I don't know. It's interesting.
And I'm sure she can like make that stupid fox jaw fall off her head however the hell she wants. Like she's definitely controlling all that stuff.
I feel like there's something we're missing. Like there was some point to this whole thing. Like she had something worked out for her to profit. We're just not getting it. Or like maybe the show isn't quite sure.
I don't think the show's going to tell us until next season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she played too much of a big part in this episode not to be important somehow later on.
Yeah, also...
Yeah, I kind of liked her as a character.
Also, she is...
I would not mind having her back.
Yeah, she is awesome. Also, she's rocking that, like, gray lipstick. Like, damn. Looks good on her.
Oh, I really liked the red eyeshadow, how she had that, or liner.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I liked. Great lipstick was whatever.
It was just a cool character design in general.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Speaking of cool character designs in general, the next show is Legend of the Galactic Heroes: The New Thesis.
All right. New These. That's how you say it. New These. Okay, so episode 11, The Verge of Death, part 1. So at the beginning of the...
2 verges of death.
Oh, I know. Only one is no fun. At the beginning of this episode... Everyone is gearing up for this gigantic battle that's about to happen. And like that kind of naive way where like they're all excited kind of. It kind of reminds me of the way people describe the beginning of World War I, where everyone's psyched up kind of. Because they don't really know how bad it's going to get or like... so they're just all patriotic.
There's like one little scene at the beginning where like these 2 soldiers are just sitting on like a transport or something. And they're like just like looking at each other and they just kind of like nod. I get what they were doing, and it was like, okay, yeah, they're just like getting ready for battle, but it was like, it was so subtle and it took so long. They spent like, I don't know, like 20 seconds on that one scene. I was like, they were looking into each other's eyes for so long that I was like, is this Yaoi? What is this? Anyway, I was just like, it felt awkward, that one little shot.
They spend a lot of time on some weird scenes, and then they don't spend enough time on some other things that were important.
Yes.
It's weird.
That's the best way to sum up this episode, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, they start landing on the different planets in the Empire. So, like, the Alliance has come. They've invaded. They're in like, Empire territory, and they're landing on these different planets, and they're freeing them, quote unquote. But because the Empire took away all of these planets' food, like, before they left, really, the people are more interested in getting, like, food because they're starving to death. And like they keep coming in and they're like holding these speeches about how they're free now and like blah blah blah, and people are like, we don't give a shit, like give us food, we're dying. And
yeah,
I felt like they sort of showed this as if this happened within like a couple of days, like this whole episode and the next episode. But this is like months, right? Because it takes months and months for people to starve. So
yep.
the sense of time is off. Like in the original anime, they spent like several episodes like investing you emotionally in this whole mess that unfolds, and they really don't do that. So it gets confusing.
Yeah, this is my biggest problem with this episode, because like what you said, in the original OVAs, they make it clear that Reinhard and Oberstein's plan was to like take all of the food from these planets. Like they took like the livestock, they took like the grain stores, and they like put them on ships and flew away, so that when the Alliance gets there, they have to like spend a crazy amount of resources feeding all of these people. It's like a really evil plan, but it's really effective, like scorched earth policy. And I hated that they just didn't make that like clear in this episode. So it kind of just seemed like the Alliance showed up and they should have known to expect this or something, and they just had bad planning. But it was really like Reinhardt's
really
like master plan with Oberstein.
It's really devious. And like really, if you think about it, it's almost that whole like, let me make this problem and then come in and solve it type thing that a lot of politicians do, like today even. Where so he's like, let me make it so y'all are starving, and then we'll come in and save you from starvation by stealing
that we caused.
And then we'll steal the Alliance's like supplies that they shipped over here for you guys because they wanted to help you and keep you from starving. And then we're going to give it to you and act like we got it for you so that you're grateful to us, who were the ones who originally starved you. Like, it's kind of a mind fuck if you think about it. But but it works really well. Yeah, so they had Yang in this episode like a lot more, because this is like one of those times in the original OVAs where like you don't see Yang for a couple episodes almost. Like he's just not in it because they're focused on the planets and like what's going on the planets and how these people are starving and all this. And I don't know. So that was interesting. They get to the looting portion of the scenario really quickly. So like it almost goes from like, oh, they're landing on the planets and now they're looting it. We already talked about that, but it was confusing. Yeah. I don't know. So they're looting the planets for food because they gave the like commoners some of their food because they were starving, but then the military didn't have any food then, and they're waiting for their supply trucks to get here to like resupply them, but they're taking too long, and so then eventually they had to take some of that food back from the commoners because now the military is starving as well. So now you have just everyone fighting each other basically. And then Yang points out at this point, like, hey, we're really weak because, like, we're starving. Like, our military is hungry and, like, we've been fighting with these commoners, and so we're really weakened. And, like, now is when the Empire is about to show up, so, like, we should retreat. And Admiral Bcom is like, you know what? You have a point. We should retreat. Like, we should get the fuck out of here. I'm going to talk to Commander Lobos and, like, get permission for all this to get out of here. So he tries to contact him. But then Falk butts in and is like, I'm not going to let you talk to Lobos. I'm going to be in between you guys. Yeah. No.
This dude would never be in the Navy.
Oh my God, he drives me insane.
No, he's kind of like a stooge of the politicians in a way.
Yeah.
That's the only explanation for why they like let him be in there. Yeah.
I just saw that. I was like, and they knew about this. I was like, there's no way they'd let him in any part of the Army, Navy. It doesn't fucking matter what it is, but whatever.
Yeah, so Falk is like basically trying to like make Bcom feel bad for wanting to retreat. And finally Bcom's like, you know what, you fucking asshole. Like, if you really are going to criticize me for wanting to retreat, why don't you come down here and like fight with us and put your own ass on the line? And then if you're willing to do that, then maybe I'll listen to you. And Falk just like can't handle this. Like, he can't handle people talking back to him and just has like a seizure. And him collapsing is just as hilarious as in the OVAs. Like, it always cracks me up. I don't know. He just collapses on the floor.
he's just such an asshole. Like, you want something bad to happen to him.
Exactly. And so he's relieved from duty. And then, like, another guy comes on and is like, hey, Bcom, like, Commander Lobos has taken a nap, and, like, we can't disturb him because he told us not to. And so, like, even though the safety of, like, the entire fucking army is in danger, you're just gonna have to wait until he wakes up from his beauty nap. And Bcom is like, fuck off then. We're all gonna leave. Tell Lobos I hope he had a great nap when he wakes up, you fuckers, and just, like, hangs up and, like, I love it. Meanwhile, the Empire are laying out this plan that they've thought over before and preparing to attack. And so Kirhias is going to take some of his forces and take control of the supply carts that they have headed towards the Alliance right now, while the rest of the Empire's forces will attack, like, the whole rest of the army. And then once they've driven off the Alliance and killed as many of them as they can, they'll get that food that they stole from the Alliance just now and take it to the planets and be like, oh, we're the heroes. And so you can tell Kirhias, like, doesn't like it. And he's got this sort of sour face because, you know, it's nasty. But he does it. He goes along with it. And then they all cheer and, like, shatter their glasses on the ground, and they're about to take off.
It's cool.
But as a side note,
I like that scene. That was in the OVAs as well. It's way better animated here, but, you know, it's nice to see it again.
It wasn't nice for me to see it again because, like, the first time I felt bad for whoever had to clean it up, and I also felt bad this time because, like, that's so much broken glass on the floor. I don't know. Well,
I was laughing because, like, yeah, when the soldiers, or sorry, the admiral's standing in front of Reinhard, they all have to throw their glass, and I'm just like, they have to throw their glass, like, accurately, like, somewhere that it doesn't hit all of the other guys that are standing, like, 2 feet away from them.
Yeah.
I think they all got some glass in their ankles. That's what I think.
Someone would step on some of that, and it would go through someone's shoe, and it would be an ugly mess. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as much as, like, I didn't think that they really got that point across about, like, the taking the food away from the planets, like, I think they still did, like, show that, hey, the chain of command is screwed here.
Oh, it's a fucking garbage.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, yeah. So, like, everything leading into this confrontation in the next episode is just went the worst way possible. Like, I couldn't imagine being in like, an Imperial Navy or something like this. It would be awful. Oh, man. So, I guess, I don't know. Leo, do you have any thoughts on this one?
No, I am enjoying the show, but I'm pretty much meh about it.
Yeah. Okay. I was meh on this episode. This was one of my ones I was like, man, I don't think it was really as good as the original in a lot of ways.
Well, they're trying to, they're rushing through.
Episode 12 is good, though.
They're trying to cover, like, a lot of ground. Yeah, but go ahead.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Like, episode 12, where it ends, it leaves, like, halfway through episode 15 of the OVAs. So, yeah, there's, like, 2.5 episodes of, like, stuff that they kind of cut out of this series, at least. So, or 3.5. So, episode 12, The Verge of Death, Part 2. So, Kirkias leads this fleet of 20,000 ships that just, like, jump out of, like, warp or whatever and, like, completely wipe out the Alliance's supply fleet. Like, they only took damage to even, like, one of their own ships. So, it's, like, a flawless victory. And then the rest of Reinhardt's commanders launch a direct attack immediately following that on the Alliance fleet, now that their supply line is completely broken. So the Alliance, like, slowly realizes, like, shit, we missed our window to retreat. And Yang is like, yeah, we need to just stand and fight the best we can. So he, like, leaves his 13th fleet in this gaseous, like, star zone that is, like, good for close quarters, like, dog fighting, because you can't, like, aim lasers through it or whatever.
Like, they don't work or something because of, like, the density or something. It was whatever.
So they launch fighters for close combat, and this was actually really great. Like, I loved this sequence of dogfighting. Like, the CGI was really awesome. Like, the cockpits looked great. Like, it just looked like a high level, like, Gundam OVA or something, or Macross for parts of it. And I was like, damn, this is sick. So, like, but unfortunately for the Alliance pilots, like, they start taking some losses because of, like, mechanical failures in their aircraft. And so, like, a couple of the pilots return to base to get things adjusted, and, like, one of them starts chewing out the mechanic, and the mechanic responds like, well, like ever since the supplies were cut off, like us mechanics haven't eaten or like had anything to drink. So we're kind of like in a coma right now. Like you pilots have been like eating because like you have to, but yeah. So he just like kind of apologizes for being rude, and he's just like, will you please like make sure my gun shoots straight?
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, we'll do it. Just kill them for me. So like, meanwhile, the other fleets are getting slaughtered by the Imperials. And their commanders react in like different ways. One of them, when he realizes he's lost like 80% of his forces, just puts a gun to his head and blows his brains out.
Did he?
I think so. I mean, he put a gun to his head and then they cut from that scene, and I'm pretty sure,
Yeah, he kills himself.
Either way, he's dead.
Yeah.
So he was either blown up or he blew himself up. So, and then like the commander who Yang spoke with in the previous episode, who's kind of on the same level with him about like trying to retreat, Ulanhu. He's one of the more rational admirals. He orders a guy named Dusty Attenborough, a fleet commander, to lead a portion of this fleet that can no longer fight through an escape route that Ulanhu's ships like open up in like the Stormwolf Wolfgang Mittermeier's fleet. And about half of their fleet is able to escape because of this like sacrifice, but Ulanhu's capital ship doesn't make it out. He goes down with the ship. At least he saved like half of his forces.
Yeah, he went. He knew it was a suicide mission though.
Yeah, he knew. He knew there was like very little chance that he makes it out. But he knew like tactically this is the best thing I can do to save the most lives. So he did it.
Yeah.
Yang's 13th Fleet forces his enemy into withdrawal because he's like a freaking genius. And he uses that as a chance to retreat towards Iserlohn as well, since there's no way of turning the tide of the overall battle. Like a couple of subordinates are like, we should push the attack. And he's like, no, there's no point to that because everybody else is losing and then we'll just get enveloped by somebody else. But unfortunately, in the middle of their retreat, Yang runs like right into the face of Kirkiice's fleet, which is back from destroying the supply fleet and like most of the 7th Fleet. And then meanwhile, back at Iserlohn Fortress, Admiral Greenhill, who is like the lead admiral overseeing this whole operation, receives news that like the Alliance fleets are in disarray and they're all retreating. However, he's received orders from the High Council that the expedition cannot end in a loss. Like, it would be too politically harmful to just come back with, like, nothing gained at all from this huge expedition. So he relays a message to all the fleets to regroup at the Amritsar Star Zone at this, like, certain date and, like, fight back against the enemy. So Yang and all the other fleets do their best to escape, even though they take heavy losses. Like, Yang's fleet in particular is just getting pounded by Kirkiice. And there's like this quick series of cuts back and forth between Kirkiice and Yang's faces that like get faster and faster. Just like for like tension's sake. It was pretty funny. I thought it was a little overdone. They did it like 10 times. I don't know. It was ridiculous.
They did kind of overdo
it's funny
it.
Though, but
yeah.
It's like an old school thing though. I don't mind it that much. Luckily for Yang, the remains of Admiral Haywood's like 7th Fleet like come out of nowhere and sacrifice themselves to allow Yang's 13th Fleet to escape. And this is like another place where Yang made a good decision. Like even Haywood is like, Yang, make the right decision here. Like he doesn't have a way of communicating with him, so he's basically saying like, I'm sacrificing myself, you better run away, don't like turn and try to fight with us like some of Yang's subordinates wanted to do. And so they kind of like salute Haywood as they like make their escape. And finally we go back to Reinhard, who hears all this news of everything going well and finds out that all of the Alliance fleets are retreating to Amritsar, and says his like little famous line of, if Amritsar is the place they want as their graveyard, I think we should grant their wish. So that's basically where it hands the baton off from the TV show to the 3 movies that are coming out in a little bit of an unsatisfying way, because like it doesn't give you the conclusion of the Battle of Amritsar. It'll clearly start the first movie. So it kind of ends a little bit in the middle of the things, but it's not as bad since you know that you have these 3 movies to look forward to soon. But yeah, if you're curious and like you want to see more like immediately, this basically ended like halfway through episode 15 of the original OVAs, which I would highly recommend like picking up from there and just watching through if you want to.
I feel like it would have been a better choice for them to have gone ahead and been more in depth with like the planning and being on the planets, and not have even gotten into the beginning of the battle. and like saved the whole battle for the movies. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say because like so much of the last part of this lead up TV show was just like a lot of political maneuvering and talking and a lot of like planning. So I think they probably felt like we need to have like a battle to close this out, but we also don't want to like start the end of the battle because that immediately flows into like the next arc as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they could have finished the Battle of Amritsar though, and just cut it there, and it's like given a preview of what's to come.
I don't know.
I think they could have done that.
I don't think they could have. It would have been hard. Like, they would have had to really skip through a lot of stuff.
Isn't it continuing right into next season, though?
Well, no, it's continuing with movies, and I'm not sure what the release date are for those movies.
Yeah, this isn't a 24-episode anime, which also is a critique on my part, because, like, in my opinion, they should have just made this 24 episodes and then maybe done some movies or like done more like seasons. I don't know. The movie format worries me. But that's just
the thing about movies is that they usually have a little bit even better animation budget. So hopefully like the movies will look even better than the TV show. And I thought the TV show overall looked pretty good.
Oh, yeah, it does.
I would like to see that.
It looks good.
But yeah, greedily, I just want to keep watching this TV show. Like I wish it would just keep going, you know, like that's me too. But oh well.
Yeah. I would recommend not to start at episode 15 with the original. I would like rewind back to like, what is it, 12, where they start covering like the whole plot with the planets, because like I think you'll understand it better if you watch those like 2 or 3 episodes as well. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But seriously, you everyone, if you really like this season of Galactic Heroes, I highly recommend you watch the original. The animation on the original is not that bad. Like you can do it. Yeah, I have faith in you guys.
You can totally fine.
Yeah.
How old is the original? When was it made?
80s.
1988 to like 1992.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's what you're dealing with there.
Yeah,
it's just time.
It's really not that bad.
I mean, the character designs are really nice. You know, it's fun.
We can talk about another show that has other pretty boys.
We could do that.
Yes.
Yotsuiro Biyori.
All right, and so we're going to start out with episode 11, Life is a Hamburg. So, Hamburg. So,
Bcom loves this phrase in anime. With a little lolly says Hamburg.
Well, every little lolly in anime's favorite food is hamburgers. It's so ridiculous. Anyway.
Is it really? Oh my goodness.
It really is. Like, it shows up all the time. Like, little kids in anime always just want, like, hamburger steak. And it's just, I don't know. I guess it's, like, easier for them to eat or something. I don't know. It's always their favorite. If you keep an eye out for it, you'll notice.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so Japan has this weird fondness for Hamburg steak, or as it is known over here in the U.S., it's just Salisbury steak. It's the same thing. So IDK, I don't know why it's so popular over there when it's really not a thing anymore, like in most Western countries. Like, it's an old-fashioned dish that they used to have a lot in like the 1700s and the 1800s.
I can't remember the last time I saw it at like a restaurant, like maybe at like a school cafeteria, but yeah,
you see it in the frozen food aisle though. There's tons of Salisbury steak meals there.
Yeah, like Hungry Man, like Salisbury steak or something. Yeah,
Banquet. Yeah, all of them.
But yeah, and it's by the way, it's called that because the guy who invented the Salisbury steak called his last name was Salisbury. He believed that like fruits and vegetables were bad for people and that they should only eat meat. And so he made the Salisbury steak to like help people eat more like only meat, basically.
All right, Leo, we need to get you on like ancestry.com because this guy is clearly related to you.
Clearly.
Oh man.
No, I can get behind this.
Okay, so I don't know. So at the beginning of the episode, like all 4 of the boys are debating on what the best recipe twist on a Salisbury steak would be to use in Rokuhodo, because the Hamburg, like, it's really popular in the winter, and it's winter now, and so they want something like some sort of twist on it to serve in the restaurant. And so they come up with 3 options. They've got one with a raw egg on top with like a glacé sauce, which raw egg on cooked meat sounds disgusting to me. One with like red sauce and cheese, which I bet you can guess whose idea that one was. Like,
Ogre.
Yeah. And one with like
Italiano.
Then it's basically just like a chicken parmesan except beef. I don't know. And then one with like radish and ponzu sauce, kind of like Japanese style, and that's the one they end up picking. And in case anyone doesn't know what ponzu sauce is, it's kind of like citrus mixed with like mirin or soy sauce kind of flavor. It's kind of like tangy, I guess is a good way to describe it.
It's delicious. I love ponzu sauce.
It's good. Yeah. It's one of the better Japanese sauces. There's only like 50,000 of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, I don't know. Also, I love how this anime has taken us through an entire year. It's pretty, like, in a very subtle way. Like, you don't, like, notice time passing, like, obviously, but it really is. I like that.
They don't make a big deal out of it, but it's like in the background, basically.
Yeah, it's done well. And then later, Tokitaka is out celebrating. Like, I guess a longtime customer is moving away soon to be with her son and his wife. And so, like, it's also not only a longtime customer, it's also like his pottery student. So he's out celebrating with her and all of her friends. And she tells him at that party that she's going to bring her son and his wife to Rokuhodo before she leaves because the place means so much to her and she wants her son to see it and all of that. So he's really happy. And so when she comes with her family, he uses the pottery dishes that she made in his class in the meal that's served to them because she always kind of puts her own pottery down, and Tokitaka wants her to like appreciate her own work and her own skills more. And this really touches her, and she makes up her mind to continue with the pottery making after she moves and decides.
Well, it's really cool that she didn't notice until like the meal was over, and then she's like looking at the cup and she's like, hey, is this mine?
Yeah.
And like she's like, aren't all these mine?
Yeah, that was a very cute moment.
It was. And I also liked how she's like, I'm going to make more for my son and his family. And I'm like, aw. I guess she's like moving in with them. Like maybe her son is finally having kids or something. Yeah. That's kind of that vibe I got from that. And then at the end of the meal, they serve this thing called like hojicha pudding, which I looked up and oh my fucking God, I am 100% making this. It is like egg pudding based and it's got like caramel and tea flavors in it.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. and I love things that are like egg pudding based. I don't know. So I'm totally making this. Okay. And then in the second half of the episode, Sui talks to Tokitaka about it's called Hotel East Side, which is where that ladies' party was held. And that's the hotel that Sui's dad built and that Kyo, like Sui's twin, runs. So there's clearly a lot of awkwardness there, but both brothers kind of like still care about each other. Later on in the episode, Tsunozaki tries to get Kyo to like talk to Sui and visit Rokuhodo by like just taking him there in a car and being like, oh, we're gonna eat here, and Kyo's like, no, I'm not fucking doing that, and like leaves. Like he's kind of like, this isn't my place. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tsunozaki like just thinks to himself like, this is really still important to Kyo, and like I'm gonna somehow get him to understand this. I don't know. Kyo is difficult.
Yeah.
I get frustrated with him. Later
with Kyo or with Tsunozaki?
Kyo. Like, because he's like way too much of a tsundere. Like, there's being a tsundere, and then there's just being a stubborn asshole. So
yeah, I have a theory about him, which I'll talk about after episode 12. But yeah, he's like a little bit of a mystery why he is exactly the way he is. So
yeah. It is interesting. Yep. But yeah, then later on that evening, the boys all decide they're going to plan like a special New Year's party for all their regular customers. So they plan out what they're going to serve, and it's clear that a lot of prep is going into this. Sui is thinking long and hard like about the whole situation with his brother, and he kind of comments to himself like there may still be time, and I think he's going to invite Kyo to the New Year's event. And the last thing we see is Sui asking Tokitaka for a favor. So we don't quite know what that's going to be yet, but like they're going to obviously do something in episode 12. So Yep.
Yeah, I liked how they worked in the scene of like the older woman, Miss Osada, giving praise to Hotel Eastside's management for being like really kind to her because they did all these things. Like they went out of their way. They like made her a cake in the shape of like a pottery, real thing.
That was impressive.
And so you can see that like Sui's brother, even though he's like really distant and like estranged from Sui, like he still comes from the same people. Like he cares about hospitality. He cares about like caring for your guests. He's not like this bad guy. It's just he holds a grudge against Sui, I think, and like is on the outs with him for various reasons. So, but yeah, he's not a bad guy, and I like that we got like a little bit of that characterization in this episode before the final episode,
where he once
again
that
was really important.
Acts like a dick. Yeah. Sorry, he kind of does.
Yes.
Like I know he's really not. Like he's really not a bad guy. You can tell, to be fair, but like he acts like one. He acts like an asshole.
He does.
So.
And this was like Tokitaka's like maybe second biggest focus episode in the series. And I don't know, like I like Tokitaka, but I think he's just a little bit underserved compared to the other three guys. Like the other three guys, I have like a very clear idea of like who they are and like what they're about and their like backstories. And Tokitaka is still like a little bit more mysterious and quiet. I don't know. Maybe it's just because he is such a quiet character that they didn't know how to like characterize him as well as the other three. But I don't know, that's how I feel.
I kind of agree with that. I really hope that they're going to give us a second season, even though I know they're probably not going to.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, they leave it so open with the brothers. What the heck is going on? But
yeah, maybe.
Well, let's find out.
That's the next
12.
episode.
All right. Yeah, so in episode 12, like at the beginning, there's this flashback scene where you see, it's called Rokuhodo Yotsuiro Biyori. Episode 12 is, so you know it's like
self-titled.
The last episode. Yeah. So you see Kyo and Sweet in this flashback as kids deciding who's going to get the ankoro and who will eat the kinako. Like there's two kinds of mochi that they have on this plate. And like, okay, ankoro is mochi covered in red bean paste, and kinako is mochi covered in roasted soy flour. I looked a lot of shit up this episode. I like legit.
Give me that ankoro.
I've never had either of those.
I've had ankoro, I believe. Yeah,
I bet ankoro might taste good.
It's an acquired taste.
Yeah, because red bean paste is an acquired taste, but it's good. But like, I don't know, roasted soy flour. It's very like savory.
What the hell is that?
It's like a kind of flour, basically. It kind of tastes like have you ever had jamacha? Like, have you ever? It's like a tea that's got roasted.
Oh, like the tea, like genmaicha tea or whatever.
Yeah,
I've had it.
It kind of has that sort of savory roasted flavor in it. It's kind of the same idea. It kind of tastes similar to that. But yeah,
interesting.
I don't think I'd like mochi covered in ganako. that wouldn't be good. Their grandfather comments that it's great that they get along so well and that they never fight. And of course, like that flashback's important because now all they do is fight. They haven't talked to each other in years. So then you see all the boys from Rokuhodo in the kitchen and they're prepping for this New Year's event. And like, man, it looks like when you see like an old fashioned like family getting together to make like a ton of cookies or something for Christmas. Like it's that level of prep. And it just reminds me like really in Japan, like Christmas or any of that sort of thing isn't the big holiday. It's New Year's. Like New Year's is the big holiday. It's like very festive. Tokitaka pulls Sui aside and gives him this cup that his brother Kyo broke like all those years ago in their fight, and he's repaired it with this like kintsugi technique, and that's like that one where you fill in the cracks with gold. I'm sure everyone's seen this online at some point. It's really pretty. It's also really hard to do. So Sui is like really impressed. Because like I think the favor he had asked him was to fix the cup, but like he did not expect him to do it in this like bomb ass way. So like he's really impressed, and it's like a really gift that he gave him, kind of. So then it's time for the New Year's event. And man, like they went all out with this food. There's so much food. I don't know.
They didn't charge anybody, right?
Okay, so I thought
they
about
kept
this.
saying this is free and on the house.
No,
like,
they said it was buffet style. I have a theory.
Ben.
They have to have charged a ticket price for this. There is no way they gave away all that food. They would be out of business. Yeah. So I'm assuming that like you had to pay like $100 as like a ticket price to come in. Or something, at least.
Maybe not that much, but like something like that. Yeah, like for their New Year's like special dinner, basically.
I mean,
yeah,
I would hope it's at least $100 for them to cover all that. I'm just saying.
It was a lot.
Yeah,
it's pretty insane. But I know towards the end of the dinner, they bring out the like desserts or whatever, and they're like, "This is on the house."
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, I think it's the crazy soba that they bring out at the very end.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
the traditional thing to eat on New Year's before going to the shrine. So yeah.
But yeah, so they bring out the soba and they've got all these toppings to go with the soba. And it's like, so they've got shrimp tempura, datemake, which I don't know why they have different names. It's just a sweet rolled omelet with like sugar in it and soy sauce, inari. And they've got like this thing called nishin, which I had to look up, which is like herring meat cut into cubes and like cooked in a special sauce. Later that night, Sui is like waiting outside the restaurant, but it looks like his brother isn't going to come. And so he finally sees this guy who he thinks is his brother out on the street, and he runs out to find his brother like leaving. And he's like, I wonder why I'm here. Like, Kyo's like, oh, I don't know why I'm in front of your fucking building. And I'm like, dude, just get in the damn restaurant, you dumbass. And so they sit in front of the restaurant and they drink tea with the repaired cup, which is very symbolic, obviously. Like, they're mending their relationship and, like, the cup is mended. And they drink the tea together, and they seem to feel a little bit better towards each other, but it's also, like, still really awkward. And then when Kyo leaves, he's like, I'm never coming back. And I'm like, really, dude? Really? That's what you choose to say at this moment? And then Sui responds.
I was really surprised.
Yeah, and then Sui responds, like, come back soon. And I'm like, Sui has to always be the nice person. Like, Kyo can't.
Right.
I don't know. And hopefully they can continue to work on it, I guess.
I hope so. But, like, yeah, just saying, like, I'm never coming back just did not feel appropriate to that situation at all.
Like, I think they tried to make it out like he's joking, but, like, he's not. Like, the way he says it is not a joke. I don't know. It's. The second part of the episode is all about making mochi on New Year's Day. So, like, it's the next day. They had a good time going to the shrines the night before and everything. Gure gets all, like, garishly dressed, like, in this crazy outfit because he's like, it's a traditional event. And, like, the rest of them are just looking at him like, dude, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. So, Tokitaka explains that you just need to knead the rice a little bit before you start to pound it because otherwise the rice will just fly everywhere in the air, which makes sense to me. I don't know. Gure is all enthusiastic to start, but like almost like does it so hard that they're like the mallet almost was vaporized. And so Sui and Tokitaka just take over. They're like, here, just give me that. You can't be trusted. And apparently the object isn't actually to hit as hard as possible, which is surprising to me because every anime I've ever watched where they make mochi, like all they do is just try to hit it as hard as they possibly can.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's just like an ongoing joke, basically.
Maybe. But yeah, so watching them make mochi, which I've watched another anime before, which is basically one person hitting the rice with the mallet and one reaching in between to like knead it. I thought to myself, like, I'm sure every year a bunch of people get hurt trying to make mochi. I'm sure like they reach in.
They're in the ER with broken fingers.
Yeah, they reach in to like knead it. Their brother or whatever hits like too quickly and like their hand is broken. Like I'm sure this happens a lot. You have to think.
Well, Kat, how did you feel about the fact that there is a top mochi pounder and a bottom like mochi folder?
I mean,
how do you feel about that?
Really?
And then they were paired off, you know. They both worked very well together.
I mean, I didn't even think about it that much, honestly. I was too invested in trying to find out how many people a year get hurt from making mochi. Because I tried to look this up. I like researched this. I found a bunch of articles about like famous sweet makers in Japan who've like broken their hands in demonstrations, but like they don't have statistics, like because you know how in America a bunch of people get injured every year trying to cook turkey, and so they have all these PSAs all over the place around Thanksgiving, like don't fuck yourself up. Don't do this. Don't do that. You don't want to be in the ER, like because Americans. Stop
dropping frozen turkeys and boiling hot oil.
Exactly, because Americans can't be trusted to not make dumbasses out of themselves. But I could not find statistics like you can find for Thanksgiving for New Year's in Japan. So I'm assuming maybe it's because it's not as big of a deal as I think it might be because Japanese people aren't stupid. I don't know. But I'm sure there's some. Like, I'm sure if we talk to someone who's lived in Japan and we're like, is there a lot of people in the ER on New Year's Day with broken hands? Like, maybe it's the case. I don't know.
Oh, just odd trivia thing. My British friend, she works in a ER over in England, and she worked in the children's burn unit. What do you think the kids were always in there for?
Ooh.
Burn unit.
Burning themselves making tea. Making tea. They burn themselves making tea.
Making tea. She's like, it's
Britain.
It's one of the most busiest parts of the hospital, and it's just a constant flood of kids in there with burns from hot water, where either they got the water on them or not. So it's just interesting.
Interesting.
I bet that is a problem.
Yeah, I'm like, that doesn't happen over here.
We don't cook here.
They also freaked out when they found out I didn't have a kettle. So
I've met a lot of people in Britain who are like, you guys don't all have electric kettles, and I'm like, well, I do, but most people don't know.
Well, I do now because they bought me one as a gift.
Wow, that's amazing.
They took pity on the poor American. Guys. They're like, oh, you poor.
They're like, how do you make tea? I was like, I just
don't
put some water in a coffee cup and put it in the microwave. They're like, oh my god, blasphemy! Like losing their minds. I'm like, okay.
I mean, it is blasphemy.
Yeah, but, okay, moving on.
To like a real tea drinker, the idea of you microwaving your water is blasphemy. Just so you know, Leo.
And also, the water can explode when you go to grab it. So,
well, it serves you right. But anyway, so they make lots of types of mochi. That they serve in Rokuhodo in all kinds of combinations. And like I made a list of kind of the ones they mentioned. So they've got natto mochi, which is like mochi covered in natto, which I think sounds disgusting. Yeah, I've
never tried natto, and I feel like I will like it.
No, you
won't. Tried natto,
you won't. No. You won't like it. Nobody likes it. We used to serve that in that Japanese restaurant I worked at. Nobody ate that shit. Like, we would just have
I don't know. I haven't met a cheese I don't like.
No.
So I really like
not a
funky
cheese
flavors.
Taste. It's not. Nobody
No, it's just a funky flavor.
It's funky.
If you've tried some really, really funky cheese flavors, then that gets close to like what natto is like, because of like the fermentation taste, but... It's like the stringiness too, and like the whole texture is just
the texture. Yeah, no, it's not my thing.
I gotta find some now.
Yeah, you gotta try
like
this.
It
I would love to see you like take a video of yourself.
I want to watch it. Yeah, if you do eat it, you better
like
take a video.
Long video of your first attempt.
But yeah, so then they make uncured ham and cheese covered mochi, which is obviously just Gurei's blasphemous influence once again.
Yay.
Yeah, so then they make the Ankaro mochi, which is once again covered in red bean paste. And then the one covered in soybean flour that I mentioned before as well, called kinako. And then there's one called mitarashi, which I kind of was familiar. So like this is a sauce that's made with like soy sauce and sugar. And I mean, I know that sounds disgusting, but it really is pretty good because like you can make egg omelets with basically soy sauce and sugar, and that sounds gross, but it's actually pretty delicious and pretty sweet. So it's good. So they've got one covered in sesame, and then they also had one called karami mochi, which is covered in radish paste, which I don't really think that would taste good either. I don't know.
Probably a little spicy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's always Japanese sweets are kind of like this weird savory sweet combo a lot of times. I don't know. It's not. They don't have a lot of like super sweet stuff like we do here. So
yeah, their taste palette is definitely different. Like that's the case with a lot of countries. A lot of people come visit here and are like, "Man, your sweet stuff is way too sweet, like way too sugary."
I've heard that.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
Yep. But yeah, and then finally at the end, after they show us all the different types of mochi you can make, they sort of treat us some new ending art with the song, which is really pretty. Mm-hmm. And okay, I have discovered someone on that animation staff fell in love with Tokitaka, because like some of those ending scenes that are new, like were a bit fan servicey with Tokitaka. Like they had some.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, someone has a crush on this character, like. So, but yeah, that's the end. And I really enjoyed it. I really want more. We could use it to like sort of see the brothers get closer, and then also just more food, more delicious food.
Or even what the hell was going on between the two, because we never figured that out.
Yeah.
So you want to hear my theory on that?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
My theory is basically like, so they have their grandfather who ran like the Rokuhodo, and so that's like one legacy, but then their father is the one who started the hotel, and their father passed away. And then I guess Kyosui is like the older brother by like 1 second because they're twins, you know? Mm-hmm. So he felt it was his responsibility to take over the family business, which is the hotel. And then we saw
two family businesses.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we saw earlier in the series that like Sui like started working in, I think, the hotel maybe, or like some kind of financial job, and then he quit and went to run the Rokuhodo instead because he didn't want to do it. And I think his brother probably like resents him for that and like leaving him to like take over father's business when maybe he didn't want that for himself. That is my whole guess at like why he's resentful towards Sui. That's the only thing that really makes sense to me.
I think that he wanted him like, to work in the hotel together with him. Like, and he was angry.
Could be that too.
Yeah, because
I do feel like he resents it. Actually, it's probably my opinion too.
Yeah, it's definitely over like their jobs and their like grandfather and father's legacy. That's the only reason they've given in the show why he would like be so against his brother. So
yeah, maybe.
But yeah, I really liked this show.
It was really good.
Surprisingly,
it was really good.
Yeah.
It's a peaceful iyashike about food. Like there's really not a lot of like, I know a lot of people were like, oh, this is just gonna be gay boys like fan servicey. It's really not at all. It's really just about the food and the atmosphere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, great show. Like, and like, not like, didn't like, it's not like the best show ever made or anything, but like, I like having a few of these a season at least that are just like perfectly good, like well drawn, like well executed, like nice, like they hit what they were going for.
Exactly. Yeah. No,
it's nice to have that.
No one's saying this is like the best anime of all time. It's just a really good one.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those relaxing shows that you want to watch. So. Yep.
Now, speaking of the best anime of all time, currently with a 9.11 rating on Mal,
what?
Steins Gate Zero.
This
what is
anime
wrong with people?
Does not deserve that rating. This anime deserves
that rating is too high.
Like maybe
I
a
like
7.
it, but it is too high.
Yeah, it's terrible. I don't know.
Okay, so episode 11, Pandora of Forgotten Existence, Sealed Reliquary. And that title actually refers to Kurisu's laptop this time. I can definitely tell that's what they're talking about. But anyway, so Rintaro and Maho go to the mysterious back room of a cosplay shop, only to find that like the secret person who Maho hired to analyze Kurisu's laptop is just Daru. It's like his side job to analyze mysterious laptops, I guess.
I know. Isn't that bullshit too? Because like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, that's so...
Yep.
What a coincidence. Like, no. It's terrible.
Luckily for Okabe, like, he hasn't fully analyzed the whole laptop because Rintaro's like pleading with him, like, please stop. Like, this laptop and the information on it could be really dangerous for the world. And he starts like talking about Suzuha and the time machine before he stops himself, realizing like, I haven't told Maho about any of this stuff. And she like leaves the room, but then he eventually decides like, I should just tell her everything to be fair to her. on the one condition that she understands that no matter what she learns, like saving Kurisu is out of the question. So once Maho understands more or less like the time machine and what happened, she immediately is like, wait, we could save Kurisu. But like, yeah, Rintaro like quickly shuts down that train of thought, explaining like, no, like the consequences for changing anything with time are like dire, and like I've tried, and like she comes to the conclusion like, fine, like we should destroy this computer. But unfortunately, that is when agents in black motorcycle suits and helmets show up at the cosplay shop, and they have to slip out a back window to make their getaway. And they're like climbing across rooftops and stuff, but they don't get far before they're seen. And then Maho is caught up with by like these black motorcycle suit people and held at knife point. And like Rintaro like quickly starts negotiating with them, and he knows this world line, and he knows that Daru and himself clearly survive into the future, I guess. So he's like, my life is not at risk, Daru's not at risk, the only person I need to save here is Maho, so he just operates on that. And like he gets them to like canter over in exchange for like the bag with the laptop in it. But then another team of special agents show up and they like start unloading bullets into the alleyway from their car, and they're all in like white suits. One of the bullets like hits and destroys the laptop, and then they like come up to it and shoot it even more to keep destroying it. Everybody on the good side is fine, mostly. Importantly, one of the women in like the black motorcycle helmet got shot in the hand, in the right hand, which is like a quick little detail. Rintaro got like nicked in the neck by a bullet, and he's like bleeding a little bit, but he's fine. And then when they get back to their place, like Maho is like grasping a fragment of Kurisu's broken laptop in her hand, which is like causing her hand to bleed, but like she cares so much about like fulfilling Kurisu's legacy that she just can't let go, basically. And then back at Ferris's apartment, Rintaro thinks back and assumes that, like, okay, the people in black were probably like the Americans, DERPA, that Braun was talking about, while the agents in white were probably the Russians. So meanwhile, Maho is still suffering from being in a state of shock and kind of like slumps against the wall after taking a bath. And like Ferris comes to check on her, and she starts meowing that something is wrong with her. And like Rintaro, of course, comes running exactly at the time when Maho's towel starts slipping off.
Of course.
So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, well, no, it's like
that's how it works.
You go from this super serious scene to like this, fan service, someone's towel is falling off, like some.
I think they felt they needed to cut the tension a little bit, and I guess that was whatever.
It was a little too abrupt, but yeah.
So after that whole kerfuffle, Maho and Rintaro talk candidly about her feelings about Kurisu and the laptop, and like he like starts to reassure her that like, I know you cared for Kurisu, like I could see it by the way like you held on to that like piece of her laptop, and like you're not some jealous like Salieri figure to Kurisu's Mozart, like you actually care about her. So that reassures her, and they go then see Maho off because like I guess she's gonna leave with Professor Leskinen to go back to America at this point. She's like done with her research assignment in Japan, and like Leskinen like invites Rintaro, like, you should join Victor Kandria University at some point in the future. You're Japan's greatest Einstein or something. And suspiciously, Mayuri notices that Yuki has like a cut on her hand, like that's bandaged up, and she claims like, it happened when I nicked myself with a knife. So that's very mysterious. But
that's not mysterious. I'm gonna break you there.
Well, so because she may have been the one who got shot in the hand holding the laptop.
I was just pissed off because I'm like, is there no one in this whole anime that's like a decent human being? Like not even Yuki, like Daru's love interest, can be like just a nice lady. They have to make her like some sort of American or Russian secret agent who's like come to.
This is World C, where Scum's wish comes from. So nobody is a decent person.
So my theory is that Yuki is the red herring, though, because we'll see later in the episode there's another person with a hand injury.
Well, I think she may be like either a red herring, or maybe they'll try to be like, well, but really she just wanted to make sure that the laptop was destroyed, and that's why she was going along with like these other agents. I don't know. They'll come up with something.
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, like, Rentaro also, like, as he's saying goodbye to Maho, like, gets a phone call from Kurisu on the Amadeus system, and then, like, he says goodbye to her as well, and she's like, I hope you can laugh from the bottom of your heart again one day, or something cute like that. And then Maho tells, like, Rentaro, I'll be waiting for you in America. Aww. And so, yeah, then there is a brief scene when she's on the plane with Leskinen and, like, Judy Reyes, where Judy Reyes has her right hand underneath a blanket. So she is definitely, like, the other option of the person who got shot in the hand in the black motorcycle uniform. She's also American, which would make sense.
Well, but isn't Yuki also American? So, like, it would also make sense for it to be her. Yeah, because Yuki is originally from America. Because that's where that's where
that
Daru,
makes sense then too.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
then it definitely is still up in the air which one of them it is.
Yeah, I think it's both of them. I think that both of the professors, both like the guy professor who's a dumbass and the Judy Reyes lady, I think they're both involved somehow. Like they're both.
I think so too.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, this anime. Oh, there was another weird little scene where Kaguri is watching like TV, I think, or maybe it's in the next episode. I forget, but she sees like a car commercial on TV, and Mayuri's like, or one of their friends is like, "You're really interested in that commercial," and she's just like staring at this car commercial.
Yeah,
I was like, "Does this mean anything?" Like, I have no idea.
I don't even know sometimes because like it's almost like the llama in the first series where I kept being like throughout the series this llama means something, but then at the end it didn't mean anything, so like you can't trust it. I don't know.
It's true, it could just be another random red herring, but who knows, maybe it'll all tie together.
It could be another random llama, you just don't know.
Oh gosh.
All right, so episode 12.
Okay, so this one is called like something like Mother Goose. I don't know. Recursive Mother Goose. There's like another episode.
Of mutual recursion.
Also called Mother Goose. So it gets confusing. But anyway, this episode really should be called That Time We Wasted an Entire Episode on a Single Song. So.
That's basically what it is. I totally agree.
Yes. So. You learn in the opening scene that Mayushi sang this special song for Kaguri when she was young and she had just adopted her. And you see flashes of the time when Mayushi adopts Kaguri. And it looks like she's in a hospital of some type, and I feel like that's going to be a plot point later. Probably. And then back in reality, you see that Mao, like after Mao and all of them left, you see that Okabe is doing well in school, and he may actually end up going overseas like they discussed before. Then Kaguri hears that song from like the flashback, and there's another dramatic fainting scenes because you can never have enough in an anime of dramatic fainting scenes. Then there's this whole section of the episode, which is like most of the episode devoted to like imitating some sort of detective novel where they're trying to figure out where the song came from and what it is. And so see if you can even keep track. So Mayushi says that she learned the song from Suzaha, who says that she learned the song from Yuki, who's her mother in the future, who was singing it. Yeah. Then Yuki says that she learned it from Okabe's mom, but it's not over because then Okabe's mom says that she learned it from Okabe, who dun 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 has no fucking memory of any of this. So I don't know.
Yeah, so I think that's where the recursion part comes in, because like if Okabe hears the song from like Kaguri, because there's at the very end of the episode, like it's like, Okabe heard the song from Kaguri singing it as like when he was a young boy. This is like an after credits scene. It looks like a young Okabe, right? Mm-hmm. Sorry to jump ahead, but like since we're on the topic of this whole crazy thing, like, so hears it from Kaguri, who would have only heard it in the future. So that's where like the recursion comes in, because it's like time repeating itself. Like it's like doesn't make any sense because it's a paradox. So Okabe would be able to hear this before from somebody who came from the future who only heard it because it was like from a line of people that heard him singing it. It makes no sense. It's like a random paradox. But anyway.
Yeah,
like,
it does make sense, but it's also like, I don't fucking care about the song. I don't care.
Yeah, also that. Yeah, and I couldn't figure out why they cared about like who started the song. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like the only thing that was interesting about the song was that like, oh, like she heard it from Mayuri. Like, why is the song itself important? Doesn't make sense, really. But yeah.
Yeah, so then Okabe's mom, which, by the way, we've not even heard, I don't think, anything about Okabe's mom, like, beyond
I was, like,
this point.
surprised she had a mom.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he's not, like, the typical anime character that has no family. Like, they didn't all die in a fire when he was 2 days old. It's shocking. I don't know. So Okabe's mom explains that Okabe started singing that song when Mayuri was depressed and he was trying to cheer her up after her grandma died. So I'm assuming like that's where he'll meet Kaguri and the whole loop will start. I don't know. Then there's that interesting scene where Mayushi is talking about how she imagines it's really tough to not remember the past, and she hopes that Kaguri like remembers and gets better. But the way they frame the scene makes you wonder if like maybe Mayushi is having memory problems, or maybe she has feelings about alternate timelines, but she can't remember them. But like she feels like there's something she's not remembering. There's something interesting going on there. They get Kaguri calmed down finally. But then something about a song on the radio reminds her of the song again. And like some weird PTSD crazy person, she dramatically runs out in the road because, you know, we have to have another dramatic scene because the episode's about to end. So
as one does.
Exactly. Yeah. So then, of course, Okabe has to like save her from being hit by a car. And then there's like a flashback to a past scene where Kaguri's in pajamas and she's like running through the rain and Mayushi is there somehow. And then later, Kaguri wakes up from when she almost got hit by the car. And then now she remembers everything. And she's like, oh, Mayushi, mom, you're my mom. And of course, it's like weird for Mayushi because she's like, I'm not your fucking mom. But like, yeah. And that's the end of the episode. I don't know.
Yeah, so this is like the halfway point of this show. And I don't know. Like, I feel like it's just been so slow to start. Like, though it's interesting. I've been reading what's... Yeah, I've been reading people's responses to like this, like compared to the first season. A lot of people are still like, "Well, the first season was even slower than this, the first half."
Wow.
Well, like it wasn't this drama all the time in the first season.
Yeah,
this is just literally a soap opera, like a time traveling soap opera. That is what this show is. I don't know.
It doesn't, because the first season had all of the luxury of having like the viewers don't know what's going on, so they could do all of this lighthearted stuff in the beginning half of the show, and like you had this good balance of like fun times with like real drama like in the second half and like a little bit in the first half, like mysterious drama. But now that we know like the deal with like Okabe and like Kurisu and Suzuha and all of them, like we know we have to stay in this like serious mode the whole time. And I think the show as a whole just ends up not being quite as much fun because of it. I'm still interested, of course, to see where it all goes. It's like a fun mystery box to solve, but like, yeah, it's just not as fun day to day, like episode to episode to watch.
Yeah, I also just get frustrated with how much time they waste on random things. I don't know. Like, and maybe they're all clues that it's going to seem like amazing once they all come together. But like from my experience in the past with stuff like this, I doubt it. I doubt we're going to be amazed.
It rarely does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It rarely all comes together in a way that is like mind blowing like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of things coming together, Leo.
Oh, everybody's favorite slave anime, Doreiku?
Yeah.
It's our last time.
Let's see how this one came together.
Yeah, let's see how this thing wrapped it up. So, episode 11, Harvest. Aya and Yuga are learning from Muon that Tsubaki came to him with a business proposal of buying and selling slaves, and also during his judgment, SEM to just take the slaves, and then what the heck am I writing? Anyways, he was just gonna use his judgment SEM when the masters would bring their slaves just to take them over, so they never would have to pay him in the first place.
Right.
So, and he also gives them like a box of SEMs to distribute. As they're sitting there, and they suddenly get a text from Tsubaki, and he has captured Sachi, and tells them to come to a warehouse that night at a certain time. And Aya decides to go ahead of the time and see if they can find Sachi before the meetup. She also has Muon use his men to like secure the warehouse while they use the dog to go sniff out Sachi, only to find her and then fall into a trap planted in the floor. Yuga does manage to shove Aya away in time, and she runs away gets away. Of course, Tsubaki shows up, gloating, and proceeds to supposedly enslave them all, which I thought crazy because, like, why did they go with their SCMs in? That sounds like a dumb idea. Well,
I guess they didn't know. I mean, is it the beginning of this episode where he explains like you can only use the judgment SEM on like the next slaves?
One where they explain.
It's the next one. Okay, sorry.
But,
I'm myself.
So all they knew is that he can just get anybody they want because that's what what's his name told him.
Right,
Muon.
So it would be stupid to bring your SCM.
So they knew that they encountered him. They were SOL. So.
Yeah,
but they're the slaves, so they can't take their SCM out, right? Or
well,
no, they can take them out. They just can't leave them out for extended periods of time.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. It must be it's the end of this episode where we learn this weakness. Fujiko, who is obviously fishing for information on Tsubaki, and she is looking mighty fine in her nightie or wherever the fuck she's in. And she gets Tsubaki to spill out some of how his SCM works and basically what its weakness is, which is basically everybody has to have lost at least once before for it to actually work on them.
Yes, because it amplifies like your feelings of about like an SCM battle
of
being
losing an SCM battle,
beginning and then being over.
Yeah, but then it also says,
so it basically gives you like PTSD trauma of your past loss.
But then he also says like it also does the same within him, and so like basically it's really hard on him to keep using it because like he goes to
it's like like it reverberates in his brain or something like that. So like to use it is like extra hard on him or just something like that. So anyways, you would assume, so we know Aya and like Ryu have like never lost, so they're probably immune to it.
Well, Ryu has lost to Aya, but Aya has never lost. Oh wait, sorry, Ryu. My bad. God, I'm so dumb. Get the names mixed up. I was thinking of Yuga. That's another U sound.
I was like, Ryu's never lost as far as we know.
Yeah.
But this is the part where his SCM seems a higher burden on him. And when he goes to the bathroom, like, take care of his nosebleeds, he gets ambushed by 3 people in gas masks. And gas mask guy is Minato Takio, and he forcibly enslaves Tsubaki with the help of Fujiko, who double-crossed him. And the rest of the episode is just like Minato's backstory that we already knew about.
Now, explain to me who Takio is again, because I forgot.
Minato Takio?
Yeah, he's from like the first episode or second episode. I forget.
Yeah, he's the one who first enslaved Sheena? The hostess girl?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sachi.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sachi.
The one who went into the club and was like, oh, I want to fuck this girl. Fuck me. And she's like, sure.
Yeah, fuck me.
Yeah.
That's that guy. And then there's another scene where when he ran into like Shinosuke and he freaked out about his bag because inside he had those gas masks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we knew he was kind of like a crazy piece of shit anyways. There was really nothing to gather from that.
But it's also just so weird that at this late stage they decide to like change the villain at the last second from like Setagaya.
It's almost like a video game thing where they're like, oh, but this you never expected. This is the final boss, like, or some bullshit.
There's a bigger, badder boss or something.
Yeah, it's even worse. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird direction for them to go at the last second.
Well, it's also an adaptation, so they probably got pressed for time or something like that.
Well, definitely, given the past few episodes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, episode 12, Explosion. So, what does Minato do with his spare time with the slaves? Well, I'm glad you asked. He likes to set them loose in the woods and only their underwear and hunt them down with an airsoft rifle, as one deranged individual would do with their slaves, you know. God. Oh, and he also likes to have 4C funsy time with his female slaves also.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
We need to play with them.
Well, okay, I just want to call this guy misogyny, like, guy, basically. Because, like, that's all he is.
He's just a cliche.
Yeah, he's just, like, some dude who just really wants to fuck, like, all the women in the world. And
and he's totally power tripping, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't there that scene where he's, like, remembering back being on the streets and like being in like the red light district?
Everybody's like, judging me.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, he's like whining about everybody judging him. But like he also like licks his lips and stuff when he like looks at the girls. Like he does all of the cliches at once. It's really funny.
Yes.
Yeah. So, anyways, Shinosuke and Ryu team up and infiltrate Minato's compound. It's an old abandoned school because Japan doesn't know how to fuck anymore and they have no children. They close all the schools. So they lay out a carefully thought out plan, and Aya sneaks into the building, gets up behind Minato and challenges them to a duel of the first to beg for their life loses. But she quickly gets detained and lets Minato think he has the upper hand, just as planned. Seems that Shinosuke set some explosives that successfully secluded Aya and Minato alone on the third floor. Unfortunately, the female slaves they thought were locked up in a storage shed were actually in the basement, and with the place burning down, they now need to get to them. Rio goes and does that. Kyo had also been acting as Aya's mole and releases her from the handcuffs, and Shinose shows up and they all escape by just jumping out a window, landing on like some kind of covering or something.
Well, they land like head first on like a metal like thing.
Like it was like like maybe there was a bike rack underneath it at one time. I don't know what it was, but yeah. And mentioned they were on the third story, so they fucking wrecked into this thing hard. And, like, this is when, like, Minato admits defeat as they're falling through the air. And so that means Aya has control of everybody except for Ryu. So they have just a final duel, and they just do it with a coin toss.
I was like, really, Aya?
And they're so casual about it. They're like, well, let's just decide it now. And I'm just like, either you're all going to go free or, like, one person is going to, like, take you all into his house and enslave you. Like, I don't know if this is something you should be casual about.
And why would Aya believe Ryu would free everybody?
Well, that's my question. Like, do you guys think if Ryu had won the coin toss, would he have given everybody up?
No.
Would he have freed them?
He'd probably have been you need to set my mom free. Like, he might have eventually, but, like, he definitely demanded more stuff, right? He would have been like, give me all your money, and now I'll set you free, or something like that. Probably.
Well, no, he wouldn't have to do that because he had control over the person who was over his mother. So he would just have to make him give back his mother, and that was his only goal.
Well, but like,
that's all he would have to do.
I don't know. It seemed like they're hurting for money. I'm sure he'd have wanted some money out of it, just so that.
Well, I guess he wanted money because the mafia guy was like, who was running his mom as a prostitute, was like demanding the money. But then the mafia guy's like, you know what? I'm going to clean the slate with your mom. Like, forget about your debt.
Her,
so then he wouldn't even need the money anymore. So I guess he had no reason to take slaves at that point.
I guess
anymore.
But it never even got to there because Aya wins anyways, and then she ends up releasing everybody from slavery. This is when Muon also gives back Ryo's mother, since he saved his life in this big plan they had. Mm-hmm. They also believe that because it's Ryuga, he's telling Ryo like. He's like, no, all the SEMs got destroyed in the fire in the building.
Oh yeah, magically somehow.
They had them all together in a box. They showed it.
I mean,
and then, but like, also one of the interesting things we found out this episode, like I didn't really know before, there are only 23 total SCMs in existence that exist anywhere.
Like, I don't know how they had this app and it was like so good at tracking people and everything. If there's only 23 of them, that does seem a little crazy.
And as far as we know, there was still one unaccounted for, right? It said something like Shinosuke sold it off, and it also shows a shot of Tsubaki with his, because he kind of got away in like the chaos and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then they just finish it with like Aya throwing hers like away through the air, and it's like doing that disintegrating effect as it flies through the air, like it's falling apart.
I'm just laughing because like when she throws her SCM away, she just says like bye bye. What a line to end on.
I don't know. I do love how Bcom and I like had the same quote in our notes where like the new villain at some point he says like women only get uppity when there's a man around helping them or something. Like,
Yeah, I was just like, okay.
which just made me hysterically start laughing. Like I had to pause at that moment and just laugh.
Oh man. Oh yeah, and there was that weird thing at the end because like the whole building is on fire right behind them, but then like a couple minutes later, maybe like an hour later, when they're all out of the building, like the fire seems to have stopped.
It was like morning. They were at night, and then it was morning.
But then there's this weird conversation where they're like, well, the fire department is demanding to step in. Like the mafia guys like got them to hold off. Like the mafia's like, we're taking care of this. Like, give us some time. And then like the fire department's like, no, we need to like stop this fire. And then like they're like, yeah, I guess this fire is too impressive to pass off as a movie shoot. But like as they're saying all this, like the fire has stopped already. And there's no fire anymore.
I don't know how that place didn't burn to the ground.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of anime magic
weird,
there.
Like thing, I don't know. And then like the weirder part about the ending for me is that like all of these people who got set free, like some of whom have done some terrible things to each other.
Some of them who've like raped each other and shit.
Yeah. They all just like laugh about it.
They're all just like, oh, we're
all
good friends
now.
I
Wasn't that
say-
crazy, that slavery game we all did? That was crazy.
Isn't it
You remember those
crazy?
times when we were young?
Isn't it crazy when we
I
all
can't
raped each
say-
other in like terrible ways?
Oh god! I will say that they all had a common enemy at the end, which kind of explains their camaraderie a little bit. And then it may just be a fucking sigh of relief because they all basically were like, "God damn, we got in over our heads."
Yeah, I think they're all glad to be done with this one way or
just
the other.
like flat out done, no matter how many times they got raped or whatever the fuck went down. And what Julia is still like super attached to Ryu, like Stockholm syndrome looks like awful.
Yeah.
Oh, you do see Fujiko talking to Shinosuke too, so she finally got what she wanted, which was him.
Okay, also, by the way, okay, so like at the very beginning of episode 12, Shinosuke had not talked very much like throughout this whole anime. And like I noticed that his voice sounded familiar, and I was like, what is he from? I don't know. And then at the beginning of episode 12, he laughs, and I immediately knew it's the same guy who plays Shikamaru, because like he has a very distinctive fucking laugh. And then throughout episode 12, every time Shinosuke opened his mouth, I just imagined like a Shikamaru who had bleached his hair and like had sunglasses on. And I couldn't unhear it. I don't know. It was hard.
You're talking about Naruto, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hilarious.
Was there anything else you guys want to add to that? And we can take maybe a little break?
Yeah, let's head to a commercial break and listen to a couple commercials from friends of the podcast. We'll be right back after this.
The Trash Pandas bring you this nugget from another trash can. What happens when Brains and Bullets discuss episode 2 of One Punch Man?
Pretty much gene splicing heads. They will
Yep.
They will splice genes. They have a cyborg gorilla. They have a frog that walks on two legs and communicates at long range. Like they got. You think they splice
The Lion King?
Yeah, they have the lion. They have a f***ing lion, beast king, and
Simba.
yeah, he's f***ing Simba. I don't mean he's f***ing Simba. I mean he's f***ing Simba.
We at Trash Pandas Watch Anime dig through the trash so you don't have to. You can find the Trash Pandas Watch Anime podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter where you'll get live updates from what we do.
Hey, do you like wrestling?
Whether it be in a bar, an arena, some weird place in Asia, or in a stadium?
Or the occasional penis plex?
Well, if any of these things might tickle your fancy, anywhere in between, from penises to wrestling, you can come and check out our podcast.
Our podcast name is Smack It Down. We talk all things WWE, New Japan, anything else in between.
I'm Jay Silver.
I'm Corey Gold.
And we look forward to you joining us.
Happy Rusev Day.
Happy Rusev Day indeed.
Hey, Colin, did you get the cardboard cutout of Consul Kev?
Did I ever? It's amazing.
Oh, I think so too. I hate that guy. Kevin, what are you doing here?
Just eavesdropping on all the, the bad things you say about me. My usual Wednesday.
Oh, well, did you at least prepare for the Retro Gaming Podcast?
Absolutely not.
Oh, God, that figures. All right, it's okay. I'll take it from here. Basically, we pick a theme every time, and we pick a number of games based on that theme. Just like our first episode where it lasted forever and we talked about space games.
Yeah, and other good, all the mainstream systems and games you love, like the 3DO, the Atari Jaguar.
Oh, come on. Colin, you back me up here. The 3DO is awesome, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were friends. I mean, it's cool. All right.
If you want to hear three guys talk about games that are bad because JD picked them all, and good games that Kevin picked, join us.
Who here wants to see a bunch of nerds talking video games with a little bit of anime thrown in there? Nobody? Just me? Damn!
Well, speaking of anime, Colin, we have an anime cast as well.
Yes, we do. All retro anime. Many of which I have never heard of myself. And I'm a weeb!
A very similar premise there. We pick a retro anime, at least 15 years or older, and we review it every episode. We also keep up on all the modern stuff, all the seasonal things from the year. Hey, Kevin, you just got back into wrestling, right?
I did.
Oh my god, did you know we also have a wrestling cast that just started?
I do now, because nobody tells me anything.
Well, what do you think of the big dog these days?
He still sucks.
Well, that's good. Well, luckily, we just don't complain about WWE stuff. We also talk about a lot of the latest and greatest from the rising indie scene, New Japan, and Ring of Honor.
I like rings and honor.
Well, you should definitely listen to the Red Leaf Retrocast. We have such a wide range of topics, ideas to discuss, and just anything to review. It's fantastic, don't you guys think so?
It's alright!
Absolutely. And thanks again for the Sailor Moon episode. That's got me a lifetime supply of salt for my fries. From the fans. Ha!
That's the Red Leaf Retrocast. All things gaming, anime, and wrestling, found on all your favorite podcasting websites.
And we're back, and this time with Hisone to Masotan, or Dragon Pilot, as it will be eventually called on Netflix when it airs in September.
Whoa.
Episodes 11 and 12.
Still a while out.
I know, right? Like, the whole Netflix thing is kind of nuts with it simulcasting in Japan and everything, All right, so episode 11, The Sky of Montparnasse and Trash Girl. So the big dragon island is starting to rise out of the ocean, and so the operation has to start. And so they load all these Mikos into this white, sort of pill-shaped craft. And then they start loading that pill-shaped thing into the back of Futomomo's cargo plane. And he's just shaking his head to side because they're basically giving him a suppository, I feel like. They're shoving this thing up his butt. And he's like, oh.
How must it feel to be I am literally in a dragon's butt?
It must be a little awkward, definitely. A little hot, a little sweaty. So even though she's a billion years old, Hinamoto, the old fighter pilot, it turns out to be the one who's taking over for Hisone and piloting Masotan. And they all fly into a huge storm surrounding Matatsu-sama, the big dragon. And he's this huge thing, making whale noises in the sky and stuff. Kind of reminds me of the whale from ReZero, the big stupid whale from the end of arc of ReZero.
Oh yeah.
And he's got lightning crackling all around him. As the mission kicks into gear, everyone has a moment where they wonder, what's Hisone doing? Because she just quit, right? And we haven't figured out why. So it turns out it hard cuts to her at home, and she's in her cat's stomach, just going goro 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 goro, just using her cat as a pillow as she sits under the katatsu. And her cat does not like this, by the way. Her cat is progressively more pissed off. And then we get the flashback explaining how Hisone quit. And she presents her reasoning to the commander and Flight Commander Kakiyasu, and she's I'm in love with Okanogi. I'm also in love with Masotan, and you've asked me to give up my love for Okinogi in order to fly with Masotan, but I just can't do that. And I also love everybody else that I've met on the base, all of you, and like I don't want to put everybody's lives in jeopardy by endangering our mission. And honestly, given like the absurd situations she's in, like her whole decision-making process is pretty logical for her, especially. But like Flight Commander Kakiyasu does not think so. She's like, well, come with me then. And she like brings her to the dorm, right? And she just like screams at her, like, and basically tells her like, you are fucking trash. Get out of my sight. I never want to see you again. And it was like, wow, holy shit.
She basically takes all of her resentments from like her entire life out on this poor girl. Like,
yeah, because I was like, well, that was way over the top. And I was like, why was it so over the top? And it's because, like, yes, she is venting towards, like, her own past. Like, she says later in the episode, like, she's carrying a lot of baggage from not being chosen herself to be a D pilot. And also her friend who left to go have a baby with the guy she liked. Like, so she has a whole bunch of anger she's been holding in, and she just lets it all out at Hisone at once. And so Hinamoto, back on the mission, is glad to be there because, like, she thinks it might bring her some closure, because she might see her friend Yae again, or some sign of her. Like, Yae clearly died the last time, like, they went into Mitatsu for this type of mission, and Yae was the Miko, like the shrine maiden for that mission. And she and Hinamoto, it's very clear, were like intimately close friends, like maybe more than friends, possibly. And remembering that intimacy sets like Masotan off, and his eyes start going red and spirally again, because like Hinamoto is like thinking of her loved one, and so Masotan starts like rejecting her. And like Hinamoto starts like pleading with Masotan, who, by the way, they had called Montparnasse in the past, hence the title. But he just won't listen. And instead, Masotan starts flying straight towards Toyama, which is where Hisone is. And, like, Hisone is, like, outside, and it starts to rain, and she can hear the storm. And, like, through the storm, like, far away, she somehow hears Masotan's voice, like, on the clouds or something. And so she hops on her scooter, and she starts, like, she sends a text message to, like, the brass, like, I'm coming back, and Kakiyasu, like, she runs into them in the scooter there because they're in like a mobile command center, like on a back of a truck, and like they almost like crash into each other. And Kakiyasu is like really against bringing her back. Like early in the episode, like Hisone had found her high school yearbook, right? And she had written in her yearbook when she was younger, like, I wanted to protect the things that are precious to me, or something. That's what she wants to do for the future. And so like when she talks to Kakiyasu, she basically like slides through the water on the road into like a bow of like disgrace. And she's like, please forgive me. And she basically says, like, when I wrote those words in high school in my yearbook, like I didn't even know what they meant. But like now that like I've met all you people and I truly knows what it means to protect the things that are special to you, like I know that only I can trust myself to protect the things that are precious to me. And like she says that like I will be able to pilot Masotan because he'll understand that like he is the most precious thing to me, because he was the thing that allowed me to meet all of these other people that are now precious in my life. And so if that's not love, I don't know what is. And like so she's like, she won't reject me. So Kakiyasu like reluctantly agrees and lets Hisone try to pilot. I was a little
like, all right, I guess we're just going to go with this leap of logic, but
yeah.
Yeah. Well, basically. I think it's more like we don't have a choice right now, because if we don't let her, everything's gonna fail anyway. So why don't we at least try?
Yeah. So because of like the terrible storm and like Masotan being like not in total control of himself, they're like, well, we can't have him land to do a boarding, so we're gonna have to like do a mid-air boarding. So they just set up Hisone on a scooter.
Hysterically at this.
It was such bull
crap. Set him up on a scooter in the middle of a bridge, right? And just like have a ramp there, and Masotan starts like flying towards the bridge, and she's just like, I guess I just gotta drive off this bridge on this scooter, and they do. And she falls, and like, yes, Masotan like catches her in his mouth. Like, luckily it all works out. So yeah, once she rejoins the formation around Mitatsu, everyone gets sucked into Mitatsu's mouth by like a big inhale.
Well, not everybody.
Well, all of the planes do. That's what I'm saying.
Jimmy's on the outside still.
Is Jimmy on the outside? I guess. Yeah, you didn't pay attention. Maybe Jimmy is on the outside. That makes sense. Like, a lot of them got sucked in. Like the big cargo plane got sucked in, I think.
Yeah.
All the Mikos are inside, so they had to get sucked in.
I think the F2 went in, and then it went back out later on, and then it's crazy.
Maybe. So there's like gravity inside this like whale island dragon thing because it's like so big.
It's a fucking nether world at this point.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so it's the Miko's turn now to sing a lullaby to try to put this thing to sleep. And so they begin to do that. And as they're doing it, Hinamoto, the old pilot, wanders off a bit. And she's like inside. The gravity is really weird inside this thing because like there's a bunch of things just like floating around in the air as if they're in free fall. And one of the things floating around is a Miko outfit and like a Miko bells that clearly belong to her friend Yae. And
that was her fucking lover. Don't lie to me.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
I mean, it had to be her lover. Like, and also, like, I thought it was interesting. It makes a lot of sense why it was so hard for them, especially considering like the time that this would have been going on.
True.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And so she tells Hisone that like I tried to forgo the duty of doing my last ritual when I found out what it was, and what it is that as we figured out like a couple episodes ago, like the Miko has to sacrifice themselves to this whale basically, and like the Miko was Yae, and Yae kind of like tricked her into letting her go basically or whatever. But yeah, that's where the episode ends, as they're like, oh no, like Hisone's like they're gonna have to sacrifice themselves, oh no, basically. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so like there's this flashback at one point where the mom is like talking about how her daughter might one day behead Miko. And I'm like, why would you? And like later you find out, oh, the head Miko gets killed. And I'm like, why would you be all excited? Like when you just had a baby, you're like, maybe one day my baby will be sacrificed to a whale in the sky. Like I'm so excited. Like.
It's religion makes people think crazy ass things.
I guess. So I'm just like, oh my god, I did not hear that. I don't know. And then also they never confronted the whole like work life versus love thing. They just bypass it. They're just like, well, like you don't have to make sacrifices. And I'm like, that's not the way it works. Like, you can't just be like, no, that's not a thing. Like, I don't know. It just felt like a...
Yeah, they basically just bypassed that whole problem and didn't address it, which is pretty disappointing, honestly, because it was like the only theme of the show that I felt was like sort of clear, like through the end. And like, yeah, it doesn't... They kind of drop it right at the end there for just a muddled ending, which I guess we'll get into. Episode 12 is called We Are Unstoppable, right? So Iboshi, like the vice minister, very matter-of-factly explains that, like, yeah, the Miko is to be joined in marriage with Mitatsu, the big floating whale dragon, and sleep in his bed, therefore binding him by marriage until the Miko dies. So I guess basically Yae had been alive all these years with this dragon, just chilling with him,
just
being
hanging
married.
out. Just hanging out. Yeah.
And like, then they had to train a new generation of Miko and a new generation of D-pilots because she was reaching the end of her life, basically, and she died. And like, damn, that sucks. But previously, Natsume, the head Miko, had been told that like joining together forever with Mitatsu would feel like better than sex. This is what her Miko friends are like telling her. Well, I'm sure it's just like a story they tell them, so like they don't have doubts, maybe? I don't know, about like wasting their entire lives. And as the ritual goes on, she realizes like, I don't feel anything. Nothing about this feels right. And also Okanogi just like is in part of this ritual, but he can't stop thinking about like what Hisone would do in this situation, because like he doesn't feel right about any of this either. Meanwhile, Hinamoto explains like basically what happened in the past with her and Yae, and that like Yae basically kind of tricked her into getting eaten up by Montparnasse, Masotan, back in the day, and like to save her from being trapped there with her, like Yae just accepted her fate basically. And Hinamatsuri wonders, like, what will Hisone do faced with the same situation? And of course, Hisone does not like the idea of anyone dying. And so she gets to action. She gets in Masotan and flies over to the Miko ritual and has herself like thrown up all over Natsume's face.
It's pretty good. It's just like right on top of her.
Yeah. Natsume was just realizing that although she has supposedly lived her entire life, for this moment, it doesn't feel right. And so, like, Hisone is arguing with her, telling her, like, hey, if you love Okanogi so much, like, why are you cheating on him by marrying this stupid dragon? And, like, if you don't want me to, like, just flirt with Okanogi, like, the second I get out of here, then, like, you should fucking live, damn it. Like, just live. Choose to live. So, yeah, like, that all gets decided. And, like, because they're not able to put the thing to sleep because they're having like a screaming match, like, so obviously the lullaby's not going to work. There's a change of plans, and they're like, we need to sleep turn this thing while it's still awake, which I don't know why it would work. Or like, if you could do that while it's still awake, like, why would, I guess it's easier to break these braids that are tying its tail when it's asleep. I guess that's the point of the lullaby. Like, so instead they have to do it while it's awake. So like F2 and Eru like try to shoot like a harpoon at these braids, but they miss the first shot. And then Hisone's like, don't worry, I'll put everything I and Masotan have into this shot. And of course she still misses. Like, she misses terribly.
Just misses. It just doesn't even get close to it before it falls short.
Yeah, it's bad.
She's still herself even now. And like, so, but like, because she's still herself, she and Masotan go crashing into this knot, and like Masotan just tries to like chew through it, and then Eru and F2 like come and join her and help, and like they both collectively like chew through this knot, break the thing open. And then after all this, like, Natsume comes to the realization that like she's figured out, like, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to live for at all. I've been living my whole life for this stupid dragon. Like, the one thing I know now is I just don't want to die yet. So meanwhile, like, she is supposed to be inside, like, piercing Mitatsu's heart with, like, her Miko bells or whatever. But she, like, lost them and left them down there. But luckily, Hisone picked them up. And she basically just, like, decides, I'm going to take it upon myself to plug up Mitatsu to stop the sleep turning or something. Like, she has to go inside, like, pierce his heart with the Miko bells, and then wedge a hole in him from the inside to plug it up. And like, she gets inside, right?
It's supposed to be like you push this button like inside, and like the weird whale thing, and then it like goes to sleep or something. I don't know. It was kind of vague.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really vague and confusing at the end of this, how this all like functioned. And so like she tells Masotan, like, okay, I'm gonna stay here, you need to leave without me. But like, he just doesn't. He stays with her because like he's in love with her and she's in love with him. Like, they have this relationship. And Mitatsu crashes to the ground and like forms a big mountain.
By the way,
and then at that point, we just
throughout this explanation, I wanted to say, by the way, Bcom, throughout this explanation, you keep saying like, and the dragon loves her, and she loves him, and they have this relationship. And I'm just like, you're making it sound like they're fucking dating.
I mean,
I don't think they're having like
follow-up manga.
I don't really think they're having like dragon sex or anything. Like, I think it's fine. Like, they're friends.
Yeah, I don't think they're. I don't know. You're the one who complains about her licking his face all the time.
I was getting ready to say there's a lot of licking involved, so take that how you want.
No, I think it's supposed to be like a platonic love. But it's fun to make that noise. At which point, so after it crashes and makes a mountain, and like we see this big montage of like how everybody in the show ends up 3 months later, and basically everybody ends up how you would expect based on how things were going. Notably, Ero and Zaito have a final scene where she goes like, I wouldn't mind being your fuck buddy. And he's like, I didn't mean that. And he's just like, and she's like, well, then what do you want with me? And she's like, I want to treat you right. So I guess they have their happy ending, which I didn't want.
And she also said, I heard why you said what you,
why
you said what you said. So
yeah. Which makes sense. Okanogi on the like everybody else ends up about how you expect. Like Jimmy is like reading comics and shit, and like everybody else like Futumomo is like maybe gonna hook up with that Onaga guy who's like really into her, but like only if he goes for her. Stuff like that.
Jimmy was actually thinking about going after Leboshi or whatever his name is.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, she said she referred to him as the end of the game, wherever that comic was. That guy.
Oh, Kingdom.
Yeah, and I think Mayumi was like, "Really?" And Jimmy's like, "Yeah."
Oh, that's interesting. I guess I didn't read into that, but yeah, she's a weirdo. Okanogi, of course, is like looking for Hisone, so he's off in the mountains, like where the big thing crashed, and he's just like walking around the mountains, right? And like he's going up like this like shrine path, and Masotan just comes running down the mountain and like eats him. And then, like, he gets reunited with Hisone inside Masotan's stomach. And he's like, where the hell have you been? It's been, like, a year. And she just, like, kind of, like, waffles around and doesn't really explain. And then the show fades out. And it's like, okay.
And they don't
so you just didn't explain anything.
Nothing.
They don't. Okay, so they don't explain how she got out of the fucking mountain. They don't explain how, like, there's not a whale mountain running around now that she's out.
Yeah.
They don't explain like, okay, so throughout this whole end thing where they're tying up everything, everyone's like, she's fine, it'll be fine. That is not a logical thing to think. Like, in reality, if this happened, everyone would be like, she's dead, that's a shame, but she's dead. Like, that is such bullshit.
She would be classified as MIA.
True. Yeah, MIA.
But everyone wouldn't be like, "Oh, she's definitely coming back." Like, that's not what would happen. I don't know. I was pissed off.
Well, you do not have enough faith in Hisone as everybody else does.
Yeah, it was so weird at the end, or in the middle of the episode, because they're like, "Well, why does it have to be this way? Why does this ritual have to work this way? Anybody can close up the opening." Like, they throw all this stuff at you, but like, because you don't like basically understand any of the mechanics of how this thing is really supposed to work, you're just lost as to like figuring out if Hisone will be able to make it out of the dragon somehow. And like all the girls are like, I think she's out there somewhere. We trust her. Like, she probably figured out a way. But like, I don't know why they would have any reason to believe that besides like the fact that they know Hisone is like, I don't know, resourceful, I guess. I don't know.
It's dumb.
It's such a weird ending. Like, it just didn't
it's a
hit
dumb
like
ending.
in a way that made sense.
It's a dumb ending. They ran out of time.
I agree.
They ran out of time. That's what happened.
Yeah, I agree
suppose.
with that. I thought the action was pretty good though, and how fast paced it was. I did enjoy the final episode. Probably more than I enjoyed any other episode.
I didn't mind the ending other than the fact they didn't explain the end. Like, it's not that I hated the whole thing. It's just like, you can't just be like, well, we're not going to explain how everything ended, but like, it worked out in the end. Like, that's not okay. I don't know.
Yeah, like they couldn't have had like a 1.5-minute scene where they show her finding her way out. I mean, you come on.
Yeah.
And it was weird because like if the theme of this whole anime is like work-life balance or like work-love-life balance, like in the end they basically came to the conclusion like work is the most important thing, as in like Masotan, but also I meet the things that I love through my work, so it's okay. So I guess I'll go back to work. It was so convoluted. I have no idea what they were trying to say anymore.
It's like they tried to answer the problem that everyone has in Japan right now, and then they're like, well, we don't fucking know. We just made this anime because it's a big problem.
Work is love. You guys know that.
And so they just...
It's an endeavor of love.
They just sort of muddled it. They're like, well, we'll just put out some half-assed bullshit, and people will be okay with that. And then, I don't know, at the very end, like, there's this shot inside the whale where, like, all of the pilots are facing, like, the back, and you can see all of their butts in a line. And, like, I did not realize before, but all of their suits have these weird, like, half thong things that are designed to, like, dig in between their, like, butt crack. Like, and I was
I know what you're talking about.
That is the weirdest thing. I did not notice that before.
The suits are like skin tight.
Well, that costume designer is a crazy dude. So.
Well, 'cause I
he has
just
lots
never
of
know.
things on his mind when he's designing those costumes.
It even kind of showed that him and Nao are actually kind of maybe going to have a thing now, too.
Yeah, but he's still focused on her junior size, and she hates
He's
that.
like,
so,
ooh, a legal lolly. I'm going to have fun with this.
Yep.
That's what he's thinking.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I know of a show that doesn't have any lollies in it.
That's true.
It's called Megalo Box. Let's talk about that one.
All right.
So episode 11, A Dead March. Quick opening with Nambu getting drunk in an abandoned parking lot because you're an alcoholic if you're doing that. Fujimaki has sent some of his goons to keep an eye on Nambu to make sure he keeps up his end of the deal and so on. And really not much happens at the beginning except for mostly hype stuff for the match between Glenn Burrows and Joe.
They did note that the odds between Burrows and Joe were like 3-1 or 5-1 in Joe's favor, which I bet Burrows was pissed because like he got in like by his own.
There is a scene that didn't get put in here where he saw these odds and he fucking threw a chair through a window or something.
You know it. Because like he got in like no questions, like because he's talented, and then Joe comes and like barely makes it into the finals, and like everyone thinks he's gonna beat him like no problem. It's crazy.
Yeah. There is actually this really cool scene where Sachio asks Joe, what does he do when he is scared? And he tells Sachio he just touches something around you, anything. It just helps him bring him back to reality, back to the moment. And I actually think that's probably a pretty good piece of advice. Mm-hmm. You could use it like even if like I don't know, maybe it feels like you're having a panic attack or you're worrying about something. You're trying to figure something out and you're realizing you're freaking out, and just like, grab the desk in front of you, and it just kind of helps you like get your feet back on the ground. So I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked that.
It was interesting.
So yeah, the fight is getting ready to start. All our characters are occupying the VIP seats up above. Even Nambu and Fujimaki are watching the match from one.
Well, but like the reason they have him in the VIP seats is because they want like to keep him close to threaten him.
Right.
So
he's watching him.
Yeah, I don't really know if that's like a good thing.
Yeah. So Glenn, which I found hilarious, shows up to the ring in the back of a monster truck, and that just shows you what Japan thinks about Americans. Like they all got cowboy hats on. There's a monster truck. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so ashamed right now. And then, oddly, Joe shows up with his old school gear on, and they call him Naked Joe instead of Gearless Joe.
I know. I was like, when did they add Naked Boy to Joe's name? Because that's what they call him.
Well,
like,
I think the
Naked Boy
announcer's
Joe.
just like, the announcer says something like along the lines of like, that's what they submitted his name as for this match. So, and it has to do with him suddenly having the gear. Glenn also calls Joe chicken, and I immediately thought of Marty McFly saying, nobody calls me chicken. He does. He's like, you're just a big chicken. And Joe just stares at him, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm having Back to the Future flashbacks. The match starts, and Joe is doing like a really good job of convincing the crowd he isn't throwing the match by like taking punches and dealing a couple out, so on and so forth. And Fujimaki is actually impressed at how good of a job he's doing at deceiving the crowd. And Joe is also just like not listening to Nambu's instructions. Like if he says like, dodge these next punches, like he fucking takes him to the face and like this big act of defiance. Mm-hmm. And Nambu's like worried if he will even make it to the third round where he's supposed to go down. That's how they have this match set up.
But like, I think it turns out like Fujimaki basically is smarter than Nambu and sees that Joe is trying to make this like dive look better. Like Nambu is just like worried about Joe's safety, and Joe's like, no, I have to take some of these punches if I'm going to make this thing look real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Nambu, I guess, is being a little bit overprotective more than usual.
Yeah.
So Nambu seems to think him and Joe will be free after they throw this match, but Fujimaki informs him that they will be working for him the rest of his life. Then Sachio, who is moping the whole episode, cheers himself up with a little rap song.
This is the weirdest thing. I don't know. Like the only thing I can think is that they saw Devilman Crybaby, which also has like characters in it who rap, and they're like, we need to do this. We need to add this to this anime. That's all I could think.
And the thing is, like, I like a bunch of the other rap performances in this anime, especially one in, like, next episode. But, like, this is the first thing in this anime that, like, really did not work for me. Because, like, I just could not take Sachio rapping seriously.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
I wish I was not so jaded and cynical that I could, like, get into this. But I couldn't. I couldn't do it, man.
I was honestly fine about it. I didn't think too much about it. But then after, he cheers himself up with the little rap, he rushes to the ring, like, to cheer on Joe. But it's not just Sachio's cheering that gets him moving, but also Yuri's too, who has come down to the ring and just basically has some choice words for him. They were something like, you were going to show me like what real boxing was or something like that.
Right.
And then finally Nambu is like, fuck it, get up, Joe. And then like crushes his headset and then like fucking like starts to fight like the bodyguards of Fujimaki. It's insane. And then this is when Joe gets up and gets super serious, and then he just basically wrecks Glenn. It's also cool how his gear has like at this point it's been slowly just getting like fucking punched off of him, and it's completely come off at this point. Like he stands up and the last piece falls off, so he's back to like Gearless Joe now when he finally wins. And then the final thing that happens is that Nambu just like fucking scoops out his own eye with a butter knife, and Fujimaki just like looks at him. He's just like,
oh, I know. I was
just like the slow
damn,
clap.
dude.
He's like, God damn. He's like,
He's
I'm
like impressed. He's like,
Yeah.
like really impressed.
He's
like
impressed, and then he lets him go.
I know. I was like,
know if
oh
it's-
my God. Like, nice.
Yeah, I don't know if I think it's the end of this episode where Fujimaki's like, for a man to give up his sight when like the only thing he wants to see is this fighter like make it all the way, like that's impressive to me. Like, and one of the other things I really liked about the whole eyeball thing is like the whole time Fujimaki is eating this big fish, right? And like he pops the fish's eyeball out with his knife. Like before, like Nambu does any of this, so it's just like a nice little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Even in the beginning of the episode, like the very first image of the episode before it starts is like the fish, because they
And
always
the
start
eye
on like an
specifically.
image, the eye of the fish. So it's like, oh, they foreshadowed that really well. But damn, Nambu, that takes some balls to do that.
Oh yeah, any man who does that, you're just like, all right, you're too fucking crazy for me to fuck with now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh Jesus, but yeah. But
Well, like it really
The
had
next
you
episode.
going with the highs, like the emotional highs in this episode. I was like psyched out, like most of this episode.
Yeah.
It was
I
good.
thought it worked really well how they had like the combined powers of like Sachio, Yuri, and Nambu all working together to get Joe to like overcome get out of his slump and just like kill this guy.
Yeah.
my sense of disbelief kind of got pushed a little far in the next episode because their abilities to heal are like Wolverine level.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into that. So episode 12, Leap Over the Edge of Death. So this episode starts with Yukiko. Okay, so she's signing on a deal with this military guy from a few episodes back. I guess we'll get more into that in the final episode, which we won't talk about until the next podcast. But man, this whole weird military deal that she's going on doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But anyway, like given like what she is as a character and what she supposedly wants, but and anyway, like so she's saying that like Yuri's gonna like seal the deal with like a win, and then they'll sign the contract with the military contractors, basically. But Yuri comes to speak with her in her offices, and like she tells him like, you're going to inspire all these people with like the infinite potential of our gear, and like this work is only the beginning of what we've started. And so, however, he just says like, you know what, I want the gear removed because I want to fight Joe on equal footing. And she's like, this is insanely dangerous, you can't do this. And like despite her protests, Yuri's just like, I've made up my mind, this is how I want it to go. Meanwhile, Nambu has invited over like Aragaki to be Joe's sparring partner for this final battle.
I was
And
psyched.
No,
I was like,
oh yeah, I was pretty
Aragaki's
psyched to see that
back.
for you.
Yes.
Yeah, as soon as I saw him pop up, I was like, I can hear Kat cheering from here right now.
So like, And like Nambu talks with like Mr. Miyagi, who is Aragagi's trainer, and that like tells him like, you know, losing your eye was like a steal, considering the trade-off is that you got to see the real deal fight one time, which is Joe. Which that's a pretty cool thing to say. Still sucks to not have an eye though. Yuri goes to see Mikio, who now is like way laid back now that he's like lost and like accepted the fact that his sister has taken over the company, and he's living out in like a log cabin in the woods, and in the basement though he has this medical lounge, and he decides like, I will perform the procedure to remove your gear, Yuri, if that's what you want.
Which also like, is he a doctor? Like, because this is a surgery. Like, I mean, he's an engineer, but I don't think he's a doctor. I don't know. Like,
he's a fucking surgeon at this point. Yeah, which is strange. But what was also strange is like, oh, when I found this place, it was really run down, and it's looking so much better now. So I'm like, so did you somehow dig under the house and make this super sophisticated medical facility? I'm a little confused.
Well, let's assume that he has a shit ton of money from this company, and he probably could just blow money on that, something like that. I guess. She's upset. Like Yukiko comes over to the house, and she is upset because like now the finals are going to take place between two fighters with no gear, and like Yuri has like basically denied their dream and the future that she thought they had together. And Mikio asks her if there wasn't something more to Megalo Boxing than just getting this military contract that she wanted out of it. And like after that, Yukiko is told about Joe's past and his counterfeit ID by her assistant, but she decides to think over like, why would two guys like Yuri and Joe want to fight each other so badly, and why they even went to such lengths to do so on their own terms before like just using this information to stop the fight or anything like that. And we get a brief flashback of the time Nambu saw Joe fight, and like the first time he ever saw Joe fight, and like immediately he asked him after the fight, like, hey, do you want to like make some better cash and stuff? Like, I know how you could. And they cut back to the present where there's like a cute, if cliche, moment of Nambu being able to hear that like Joe isn't stepping into his punches the right way. Like, and actually like there is like a long history of there is a long history of blind boxing trainers because like if you get punched repeatedly in your eyes for your entire life, a lot of boxers go blind.
Really?
But then it's also like the only thing they know how to do, so they end up training other people as blind coaches. So that's definitely something that happens.
So it's kind of an actual legit thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool.
Okay.
And it's funny because he talks about Joe's punches like a cow cutting the cheese or something. Like, it just sound terrible. So... Meanwhile, Yuri gets out of his anesthesia, and they've had to like lock him in a room because he's like screaming in pain.
This
and
scene,
agony.
like he's apparently in agony, but he just runs around the room like punching everything. Like, I don't think that's gonna make you feel any better, dude. I don't know.
So if they remove that gear and just gun and go off, basic stuff, he's practically a burn victim at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is the recovery time of this is extremely long. And that's even with like multiple skin grafts and stuff. And this dude just like recovers overnight. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it takes him like a few days or whatever, right? But still, even then, like he's healed a lot. And then like, so I think part of his agony is like a mental agony. It could be over like the loss of like phantom limbs, basically, like that kind of agony as well. But I think because it's so like integrated into his body, he's definitely must be going through some mental anguish as well, but it's hard to tell like how much of it is pain, how much of it is mental. But for whatever reason, like Yukiko comes and sees him and like pleads with him to just put the gear back on and come home with her. But he tells her that like my original trainer in like Russia or whatever, like way back before I ever met like Yukiko, like told him that if he ever met a fighter that he wanted to beat from just like the bottom of his heart, like he should consider himself blessed by that. And like he should never let that guy out of his sight. And like he tells Yukiko, like, you gave me a reason to live, and like please don't take that reason away from me now, is what he asks her.
It's kind of like he's breaking up with her. It's like they've been dating this entire anime, and he's like, well, but in the end, I found this dude, and he's like mighty fine, so like we're done now. Like that's kind of
Basically.
I guess kinda.
His dream is more important to him, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's true. Like, I think Yukiko does think about him in a romantic way. Like, I forget which episodes it's in, but like she looks out a car window and whispers the words "I love you" at one point. Like, so, like, yes, like she definitely looks at him that way.
I don't see any point in this whole like thing with him taking off his gear. I think it's dumb. I don't think it makes any sense.
Well, he wants to fight him on perfectly equal grounds.
Nah,
that makes sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense. It's not going to be even ground. It's going to be him crippled because he doesn't have...
Yeah, he's like, if we were sticking with like real life, the dude would fucking be wrecked by Joe in the ring.
Well, to be fair, Joe is also crippled at this point because of all the fights he's been through in the past like month. Like, so I feel like it's two guys who've been through like a war in the last episode, like
they're gonna
going
just
at
limp.
each other.
They're just gonna be limping around. Like
they're the last two guys on each side, and they're both fucking got bullets to their arms and legs,
Yes.
and they're limping, and they're just like, "I'm gonna take you out."
to me, it's just more like machines are bad talk. Like that's all this is. It's like people need to win
Kinda.
without tools, and it's like, I don't know. And then also, like, I'm really impressed with the little details of this anime, most of all, like the art and everything. Like, there's this really realistic, like, cut in where he's about to do the surgery and he just, like, cuts open his arm or something, and there's, like, this close up, and it's really realistic. I don't know. I'm always impressed by those sorts of shots in this anime. So
Yeah, the only other thing I'd say about the end of the episode is that like it ends with this like montage over a rap track, and I think Leo and I both have like the album, by the way, for this already.
We do, because I messaged you. It told you,
Yes.
dude, I got the album. It's fucking fire. And then like 2 hours later, I was like, all right, I made a playlist to go running to, and I did that, and it was amazing. And you're like, what's
amazing.
the playlist? I sent it to you, and you're like, yes.
Yep, I'm like, those are the right tracks. Like, yep. And like, so yeah, this episode closes out as it gets hyped for the final fight with a track called "The Beast."
It's fantastic.
Yeah, starring a rapper named Komachi, and it's so good. Like, it's so the opposite of the Sachio rap. Like, it's
Giving
like
me
exactly what I
goosebumps
want.
talking about it.
it's pretty good.
Yeah. And of course, like, they're all set up to fight in the final episode, which we will cover next week. So yeah.
In a more of a special kind of episode, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hype. I don't know. Like, do you guys think like the Glenn Burrows fight like ended too fast? Like, do you think it should have been a bigger fight, or do you think it's just like that's what this show is at this point?
No, it was. I think that fight was actually kind of lengthy, and it did a real good job of like telling the story at the same time.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I just know there's a lot of people out there who are complaining about like the boxing in this anime, and I just feel like the boxing's not the point of this anime. Like, it's telling the story of the people around the boxing that is the point.
Yeah, the storytelling was fantastic. That was one. As storytelling wise, that was one of the more fantastic ones. If you want straight up boxing the way it looked, I think the very first fight Joe was in, like when he was throwing matches, was like the best looking one, because they were doing like special effects and slowing it down and shit, and it was awesome.
In my opinion,
And yeah, we'll see how it ends next episode.
Yeah, episode 11 was amazing. Episode 12, I didn't really like it at all. We'll see.
It's the setup for episode 13.
We'll
Basically,
see
yeah.
how the last episode is. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to talk about that one. But before that, we have the final episode of Wotakoi.
Was this more popular than Tadakun?
Yes, it was.
It
At least
was.
on
Okay.
Mal.
I picked the
quite a bit
correct
more.
one. Thank you very much. Of the two romance
Well, I haven't
anime.
finished Tadakun, but I know a lot of people liked that as well. But this is definitely the more watched show of
Yeah.
the season. It like struck a chord with more people, for sure.
Now, I'm not saying that makes this a good anime, because as we're about to discuss, I wasn't too happy with the last episode, but like, it's still, I mean, it's the better one. Like, it's the more watched one. So it's whatever.
I can say I'm looking at this anime trendings post, and the Tadakun beat out Hirotaka and Narumi at number 1.
Oh, very
They were at number
interesting.
2.
I mean, but it had
So-
more watchers on Mal, so I don't know. We'll see. But
Yeah, it's always hard to judge like how many people are watching something because we only have like our limited statistics to go by.
This is only week 11 also, so we'll see.
Yeah, but okay,
All right.
so the last episode of Wotakoi is kind of like that super soft, like romance ending that you see sometimes where like nothing is resolved and it's just sort of them like softly being like, and that's the end, but like nothing happens. So you see, so you see Hanako and Kabakura like together drinking coffee, kind of relaxing like on a day off. And it's nice to see them like that. They have some flashbacks to where they were both in high school where they started dating, and like it doesn't really give you any new information, but you get to see them like when they were younger. And Hanako looks super boyish in high school.
Yeah, she had that short hair. She was cute.
Yeah, she's cute in her own way.
No, she was really cute. She had like the boyish haircut, but she still had the big tits. So
No, I mean, I'm not saying she's cute. She just had a very different vibe. So, but yeah.
Yeah,
so
very different vibe. Whereas, like, what's his name? Taro, like, just looked exactly the same, but younger.
Yes, exactly, yeah. But yeah, then you see Narumi, who decides that she wants to go visit Hirotaka over the break. So she's worried that he won't be too happy to see her because he's been really excited to play a new game that came out since he, quote-unquote, quit games for a while. And the break gave him, like, an...
Mobile doesn't count.
Well, yeah, but
mobile games don't count towards that.
That made me think like maybe they were really busy at work or something. Like that's all I could think of. Narumi knocks on the door, but there's no answer, so she just kind of comes in, which is apparently a thing in Japan. Like people just walk in your house, like if you don't answer your door. I could not handle that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So she comes in and Hirotaka is like on the floor and it looks like a scene from a horror movie and it's like, is he dead? But like, no, he just has a bad case of like gamer overdose and he hasn't eaten like for days and he just passed out basically. And then there's this point where Narumi is trying to figure out like what happened. And she uses the sink being spotless as a clue. I guess because like that means he hasn't eaten or something. I'm like, well, I don't
dishes.
know. Yeah. So she sends him to the shower because he stinks, and she calls Hanako while she cooks food for him in the meantime while he's in the shower. And it's cute. Like she's talking to her and she's like, what do I make with this food? And blah, blah, blah. And like at one point, Hirotaka comes out of the shower just like butt naked. And I know he knows better. Like I know he knows. Like,
he does, right?
It's ridiculous.
Well, I guess the idea is that he was so out of it that like he didn't even know she was there.
Oh,
like
he
even
knew.
though she woke him up.
I almost wonder if he's like, ooh, this is my way of showing her what I got or something. I don't know. Because like they haven't made any progress at all. I don't know. So
he's just reminding her, by the way, I have a dick.
Yeah, like it exists. It's here. So Hanako gets off the phone with Narumi and then has like a debate with Kabakura about BL and Yuri. And it's a cute scene, but really I feel like they already had this conversation like in earlier episodes already.
Yeah.
But he actually reads it this time.
He does, yeah. So it's funny how he gives in and he reads it and he likes it in the end. I don't know how I felt about it though, because like on the one hand, it's bad to push things that like are your favorite, like you know, franchises like onto other people, but also in any relationship, it's good to compromise and do things that like the other person really wants you to, even if it's kind of inconvenient. Like sometimes it's better just to, you know, make them happy. So. It's whatever.
What do you think about Hanako saying that like BL is basically just shoujo manga, but with boys? Do you think that's true?
That's not true at all.
That lost me completely. I'm like, what the fuck is she talking about?
No, BL is like really like sexually violent and stuff sometimes. Like it's not.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Like. It's basically
like maybe some light BL is like shoujo manga reversed, but like yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, no. A lot of it's just like girl porn. So I don't really know where she got that. Okay, so then back at Hirotaka's place, you find out that Nao comes over to cook often, and that's why Hirotaka never cooks himself, and like that's where the food in the fridge came from, which leads to Narumi imagining Nao as like Hirotaka's wife, which is just another yaoi cliche, and I'm just like, oh. And then they decide to go out and take a walk around the park, and they talk things out a bit, and like talk about how things are nostalgic and all of that. And eventually Narumi realizes that she's going to miss a special show on TV, and they like run back and she promises to cook dinner with Hirotaka after the special. And it's all very like cutesy and coupley, but like that's it. That's like all you get. Oh, there's like a little scene in the middle there where like now is with that girl that looks like a boy, and you kind of see like, oh, eventually they're gonna get together.
Yeah.
But that's all. Like that's all
That's
you
my
get.
thought.
That's all. I don't know.
So I had some dark thoughts even early in this episode. So you remember where like Hirotaka's on the floor like he's dead?
Yeah.
I like started thinking to myself like, I wish he had died. I wish he had died, and the rest of the episode was Narumi like weeping over his dead body, wishing she had done something fucking sooner. Because that's how I start to feel about these rom-com anime when they get to the end and there's like no character development and no progress. I feel like so morbid about everything at that point. So when I saw him like dead on the floor, I was like, please be dead, please be dead, please be dead. I was like, I just want anything interesting to happen.
Oh my god.
So,
yeah,
also, like, this show seemed to think at the end that a girlfriend would, like, buy you toilet paper and iron your clothes. Like, I guess maybe some girlfriends would do that, but, like,
no.
I would never have my girlfriend buy toilet paper for my apartment.
I don't know how deep in a relationship you are at this point. Like, at the beginning, I don't see that.
Yeah.
But... I mean,
if you're basically almost married, like, sure, I guess.
Well, okay, so like,
but like, yeah,
I get the whole like sometimes you cook for each other when you're dating thing, but like it did get a little, it did get a little like, oh, girlfriends are there to take care of you and be your mom, like kind of idea, and I'm like, no, like that's how you get a girl to break up with you really fast is to act like she's your mom, and like expect her to iron.
Like that.
Yeah.
That part where Hanako and Taro are on the phone and they're like, oh, she's acting like a mom. Oh, she's being such a mom right now. It's like, so is that like the goal for Narumi to become Hirotaka's mom? Because like Hirotaka at the end of this anime does not change one bit from the way he was at the start of this anime. Like not a bit. And like, so like the message is like Narumi has to change and become like a mom for him for their relationship to work out. But he doesn't have to like make any effort whatsoever to change himself.
He did was actually finally act on his feelings for her by suggesting they date after so long.
Like
that's
very,
the only thing he really
very
did.
like shallowly too. Like it's not like he made some grand gesture and was like, "I've loved you this entire time." Like instead, he's just like, "Maybe we should date." Like very casually, like not a lot of effort. I don't know.
They also had like a conversation at some point where they said like what you like never changing. Like if you never change what you like, if like you always live like the same thing, that's what it means to be an otaku. And I'm just like, I don't think that's fucking true either. That's like a really, really sad idea of an otaku.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was like a whole bunch of weird things in this episode I didn't like, but
honestly, I was expecting better of the Noitamina block. I was really disappointed. I was expecting there to be actual, like, deep meanings in this. I should have known better.
Mm-hmm. And just as my last thought, from a realistic perspective, I think Hanako is probably, like, the best. I need to get a girl like her, basically.
She's awesome.
She is pretty fucking awesome.
All right.
So Hanako would probably yell at you for not eating your vegetables and then force you to read BL.
Would force you to eat vegetables. She would shove that shit down your throat and you would have to eat it. If you're prepared for that.
She would do a photo shoot of you eating cucumbers. That's what she would do, and eggplants.
I don't think so. I do not agree with you guys on that perspective. I don't think she was ever picky about that. What I would do is I would just, give her 2 beers and then I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore.
That's true. You don't have to worry. Yeah. You're fine.
That's my final thought on that one. So,
all
right. We should move on to something a little bit more lighthearted, which is Hinamatsuri.
Oh, It's so good. Episode 11. A man thirsty for blood, violence, and money. Okay. What show are we on?
You weird.
So an interviewer wants to get an interview with the legendary Yakuza Nita and gets his boss to let him actually lead the project. Upon interviewing Nita and following him around, they're at first taken aback because he just seems like a normal, nice guy. The interviewer just believes he's hiding his true nature from them. They even interview his mother and sister, and they laugh at him because he wants some wild stories about Nita, and they're like, there's none like that. The guy the guy even has Nita stage him losing his temper and hitting Sabu with like an ashtray, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
The dude like finally snaps and he just fakes the whole thing with scenes that never happen. Even the people he's working with is like, this is wrong. This is not right.
This is not. Doesn't he say like, this is not journalism or something?
Yeah, this is not journalism anymore. But it's pretty funny because then like Hina and Nita watched the interview one night, and then even at the end of it, Hina's like, "Who is that?"
Who is this guy? Because they just cut the shit out of it. They were actually really clever in how they rearranged a bunch of the scenes and things that he said to make it form like the expected like monster Yakuza
You're
man
not
narrative.
My daughter.
It was so good because like it was almost everything I think is something that Nita had actually said earlier.
Yeah, no,
in
it
the
was.
episode.
It was all 100% something he had said, but then they would just cut out parts and put it in specific scenarios, which would just make him sound like a monster.
I was like impressed by how smartly they did that in this episode, though, because like they did a really, really good job of doing that.
So in the anime, they did the exact same thing. Not in the manga. Fuck.
Oh, the manga, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I was not surprised that they did this. So like, they were just pretty much literally following the script. And just nailed it again for a second time.
The manga author did a very smart job of writing this series of events in a way that it could like unfold backwards, looking differently. It was great.
Well, as I told Kat earlier, she's like, "Man, I really want a season 2," and I was like, "Well, there is still plenty of material out there." So, then it's really funny because then like the president had actually recorded it too, so they poke fun of him at the office and he runs out like, "Why do you guys hate me?" It's so good. Like they even memorized like his lines and stuff. They found that fucking humorous.
I love how
they just love it.
They just have like copies of this interview like around, and they just watch it all the time and like quote it to each other.
I'll mention it now because I don't think I'll mention it in the next episode review. At the end of the next episode, just like a montage of where everybody ends up, and these two guys from his office are just shown watching the interview again that they have recorded, and it's so funny that they call back to it.
He'll never live that down. He'll be like 80 years old, and like his old coworkers will come over and like quote it to him.
They'll be showing it to the new recruits and everything. It'll be fantastic. So the second half, Hina goes on like a school field trip for the weekend. Anita is going to watch Anzu while the old couple will go to like the hot springs for the weekend and whatnot. Anzu didn't want to go because she didn't want to like intrude on their personal time or whatever. Because Anzu is just like the best daughter you could ever have. But of course, Nita can't help but compare Anzu to Hina during their time together. She helps him with the dishes and the cleaning house, and Nita finally has to like leave the room, and then he just starts like cursing the old couple for getting Anzu, and he's stuck with Hina. So he's just like, all right, I'm gonna fucking Anzu used to be a bad girl at one time. I'm gonna turn her back into like this bad girl because fuck this old couple. So he sets this out and he takes her to like an aquarium and to bowling, and he's just trying to corrupt her this whole time. But Anzu's pure-hearted joy also at the same time is like starting to get to Nita, and he's just like he has to keep like pulling himself back to reality. Like, I'm trying to fucking make her into a bratty kid again. But he ends up breaking down when they go to the amusement park and tries one more push and just fails. He finally lets in and just enjoys himself in the ideal world for a father, as he puts it. When Anzu leaves the next day, he remembers reality. Quote, Hina is coming back today also.
Yeah.
But then he gets a call from like the ski resort the school went to, and it seems Hina has gone missing in the mountains, and Nita is just kind of like standing there. He's just like, oh.
This is my life.
That's
He's
his
like, I
whole
don't know
reaction
if I care
to it.
anymore.
If I care enough to have a reaction to this. So God, every episode's funny. I laugh every episode. I mean, that's pretty much the point.
I wrote like, this may be my favorite episode of the show. I'm not sure. There's a whole bunch of really good episodes, but like, I loved both parts, especially the part with Anzu, because like anytime that they're comparing Anzu and Hina, I just laugh my ass off because it's such a good like comparison of like the perfect angel child and just like the devil like terrible child. And then there's all this like angel imagery late in the episode where like a bunch of angels,
so good. Angel Anzus are like hovering up, pulling him away from like the sea of like hellish looking Hinas. Oh, it is so fantastic.
Also,
man, that's a good sign. If you're having trouble choosing a good episode, your favorite episode, that means you've enjoyed a fucking lot.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the show a lot. Anzu's outfit also for the whole second part of the episode was just adorable. It reminded me of a lot of the outfits from Sakura Quest, where they would wear like a leather jacket and then like shorts over like tights and like boots. Yeah. And it's just so freaking cute. She has her hair up in like a ponytail and like a scarf. Like the whole thing just looked awesome. I like good like costume and character design, like when they put effort into it and it looks like right
I totally
for the
agree.
character.
We praised like you said Sakura Quest for doing that. Just like
they change
every episode,
costumes like every episode.
The next day, they're all in new outfits. Amazing.
Yeah, it was nuts. Sakura Quest went crazy with the character design.
Kat, you had something you wanted to add?
Oh, yeah, I was just saying, like, I know my favorite episode was probably the one with the concrete barrel and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I had
That makes
no
sense
trouble.
because you wanted the Yakuza stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get that.
All right. So we got one more episode 12, Yukimatsuri, which means snow festival. So as we found out at the end of last episode, Hina is lost in the mountains on her ski trip, and she's luckily with Hitomi and like two of her male classmates. And like when Hitomi explains to her like there's no food when you're lost in the mountains, like she realizes like this is bad. Like, I like food.
After making a bunch of jokes.
Yeah. So apparently this all happened because like one of the boys named Kengo thought he knew a shortcut off of the ski trails. By the way, never take a goddamn shortcut off a ski trail. It's such a terrible idea. I see people do it all the time. And like maybe if you're like a super experienced skier, but like it is a really good way to run into a tree and like break your leg. So anyway. So they've built like an igloo, right? So they can shelter for like the night. And like Hina leaves this igloo and like the other three start hearing these like loud noises from the forest. And like Hina returns and says like, I saw a light, and nobody believes her. Like they go look for the light and they don't see it. And then like Hina's like, fine, I have no choice but to just try to explain to these people. She's like, I have special powers and I flew in the sky and I saw this light. And Hitomi's reaction is she just gets up, and Leo, what does she do?
She just fucking smacks her across the face. And I fucking lost it.
Like she's trying to slap some sense into her, like you're speaking nonsense.
Oh god, I lost it, dude. It was so funny. I'm pretty sure I actually had to pause it because I was laughing too hard and I knew I was missing shit.
It was a good slap. So like she goes outside Hina goes outside the igloo and just like starts floating in the air, and then like tells them like, look, okay, I can use special powers. And the boys like have like a little huddle and they're like, I think we're hallucinating still. Like this doesn't make any sense.
They're like, oh, we're having breakdowns now too.
And then like Hina like starts making Hitomi float, and finally they believe like, oh my god, like Hina, I can't believe you have these powers. We thought you were just like a living poop generator up until this moment.
Huh.
And so unfortunately now Hina has like run out of power though, because she hasn't eaten anything. So like she can't use her powers to save them. So the next morning Hitomi like wakes her up and tells her like, close your eyes and come with me and you'll have some food. And I was like worried they were gonna feed her like some rotting carcass of something, but like no, what it is like the two boys like and Hitomi put on this skit where they're like, oh, we're in a sushi shop and we've got these ikura rolls. They're a little cold though, but like so they make these ikura rolls out of snow and like give them to Hina to eat, and she like tries to pretend that she likes it, but she's like, this is just cold snow, isn't it? They keep trying to trick her. And like, luckily, like just eating a little bit of the snow gives Hina just enough strength.
Hitomi's breakdown as she tries to convince her was fucking hilarious. Also, she's like, "It's so good." She's like,
she starts like eating the snow really fast. She gets brain freeze. Like, yeah. So luckily, yeah, Hina got just enough strength that she makes these 2 giant snow sculptures of Ikura rolls, and so this helps a rescue helicopter spot them. And like the guy in the rescue helicopter is like, they having like a Yukimatsuri down there, like a snow festival? Like, what the hell's going on? So that's where the title of the episode comes from.
And the other guy's like, hey, are they the ginger on the platter? And the guy's like, no, we're supposed to be rescuing them.
So yeah, Nita comes to see Hina like recovering in the hospital. And like he imagines this montage of all of his time with her. And one of my favorite things about this little montage is that it's all scenes of Hina, and then there's the one scene of Anzu from last episode. Like where he's like just like he prefers Anzu, right? And like it hard cuts to like Hina like smacking him on the chest in the car. Like it's basically like a visual metaphor for her, or like her saying like, hey, you're supposed to be like imagining me in this montage, you asshole, not Anzu. It's really funny if you look for it.
And I love final episodes where like you get to revisit like all the characters. Like Yotsuiro did that.
Yes.
And then they did it with this flashback here. And it's also, they do a great setup for a season 2.
Yeah, because it's interesting. They do that sequence, the end credit sequence, like halfway through this episode, right? And like a bunch of the characters, like Leo said, we see a bunch of the characters. They all get like fitting or happy endings, and then like Hina wears a shirt that says "The End" on it.
Yep,
but then
that was
they're
awesome.
not done.
Yeah, they start doing. Don't they just like start rolling the credits? And like at that point, like I moused over the player, and I'm like, we still have half an episode to go. What the fuck?
Exactly,
and
basically the exact same thing.
They did do the credits.
That's basically the setup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it was a little weird because I was like, wait a second.
Because there's one girl in this show who hasn't. We left her in the middle of the sea of like the South Sea of China or something.
And it's also funny because she started the series. She was the first person we saw in the first episode.
That's true, and I was reminded of that this episode when I saw like the kung fu stuff. I was like, oh, that's who that is. Okay, so cut.
It kind of came like all the way back around.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know everything about her, so I'm not going to say shit. But she's a fun character also.
Yeah, so the episode cuts to like 3 years later in China, and like the lead singer of that band that Hina had once helped out with like magic tricks is like Central Park is the band. He's in China, and he's like looking for this like supernatural martial arts school, because like his whole band had gone to like America to learn magic, right? And then he came back to China, I guess, looking for someone to like help with his act.
What's he called? He's like Rock.
Rock. Where the hell is it? I thought I wrote it down.
That is very. It's even though the manga is so much farther ahead, that is still fucking relevant.
Oh, it's like called Rock Fusion. Fusion.
Yes, this is a thing. If you keep following the story, it keeps coming back, and it's
great,
hilarious.
So, like, the singer is trying to talk to Mao, who has ended up at this, like, monk monastery for, like, martial artists who, like, have supernatural powers, basically. And he recognizes, like, the magic power she's using when she breaks a bunch of pots, because he's like, oh, it seems like what Hina used to use. And he tries to talk to her, but he gets, like, dragged away by the monks who are, like, protecting her. They think she's, like, a god, almost. And so, like, even now, we see that Mao has like made new wooden idols for Hina and Anzu that she talks to all the time. And then they like briefly show you like she got off the raft and like walked through like piles of garbage and stuff, and like started like performing on the streets, like doing feats of strength with her powers to like make money. And that's how she got noticed by all these martial artists. Mm-hmm. And like there's this one point in this episode where like one of the monks hears her talking to Hina and Anzu, like the dolls, and he goes back to like the head guy and he's like, once again she is muttering at the wooden dolls in Japanese.
Yes. And I was like, why is she not like talking to people now? Like, I guess she just got a little crazy on that island. That's all I can just I don't know. It's weird.
And like I think she needs to like remember herself, I guess, in her mission. I don't know. She's a little nuts.
Well, but then when she meets with that guy and they both talk to each other, they both think each other are crazy. They're like it flashes to each of their perspectives, and the one guy's like, this girl's a little insane, and then it flashes to her and she's like, he's kind of nuts.
Yeah. It's great. Like, yeah, the rocker comes back, and like Mao figures out that the rocker like knows Hina-chan, and like so they decide like, okay, I'll go with you back to Japan, but like the monks try to stop them and they like make a run for it. Mao ends up into this like crazily well animated kung fu scene in the streets. And she eventually like pleads with the head monk to just let her go to Japan. And he's like, okay, if you can pass this like ultimate trial, and the trial turns out to be like this spinning like metal martial arts dummy like that like easily cuts through rock. He's like, if you can stop this, like if you destroy it, like we'll let you go. And so she just like uses her powers like to easily like stop like the arms from spinning around. It's even funny because she like makes sure like after she stops it with her like mind powers, like she puts her hands like a little bit closer to make sure it looks like she's actually physically stopping it.
Just a little 1-inch punch.
Yeah,
blows it up. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, the martial.
And so the head guy gives in, lets her go, and and that's it. That's where it ends. They fly back off to Japan.
She's like, you need to make lots of martial arts schools in Japan so we can make money.
Yes. Spread our influence. It was also funny because like one of the ways she argued with him was like, I brought in a lot of new students for you and they've been making you a lot of money. And he's like, yes, we have opened like 10 branch schools across the country. Like
I don't even think he said 10. He said something like way higher. It was pretty insane.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, loved this show. It was kind of a little bit of a weird way to end it, just having it end halfway and then starting like the Mao like preview of the next season. But like, I don't care. I just want a season 2, basically.
Good, me too. I know Kat does too. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Well, and also like I really liked the martial arts in that last part. Like it was really well animated. Yeah. Like the parts where she's dodging and like hitting. I'm like, damn, it was good. So. And
I would love to see Mao like hook up with like Hina and Anzu and just see all of them together and Hitomi, see how they would all hang out. Mm-hmm. That I'm sure they're getting there in the manga if they haven't already, and like I'm excited.
Yeah. No, the manga's really far ahead.
Oh, nice.
There's a lot of material out there. Yeah, they've already done that and then moved on.
Perfect.
So yeah, if anybody's interested in the manga, I can't recommend it anymore. And even from the very first episode of this anime, I was surprised at the animation quality. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, it's always been top tier. Yeah, it's held up the entire season. Yeah. One of the better looking shows of this season, I will say, honestly.
Who was it? Studio Feel. That's who did this.
And that's why like sometimes Feel does like really trashy stuff, but like occasionally they do really, really good work too. And this is one of those shows. So yeah.
Ooh, you want to talk about some controversy?
Oh God! Here's the data dump for the day.
I keep getting the data dump episodes.
No, okay. Bcom, I also had a data dump episode. Don't act like you're the only one. Like all of these episodes are data dump episodes.
Pretty much. So, Darling and the FranXX. Episode 21 for you, my love. So Hero does that memory link they did before with 02 on like but he does it this time with the Klaxor Princess, and it slows down the detonation of the super weapon for reasons. Our crew decides to go check on Hero and 02 since they don't know how to even fight at this point. Who to fight at this point, because it's pure chaos, and
isn't it kind of like they set this software to go off if someone is running,
if she accessed it,
like by herself, like in that rampage mode or whatever. So like him helping her, then that's why it slows it down, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, like they don't know who to fight, so they're going to go like figure out what's this bomb thing going on and whatnot. But then we go back to Klaxor Princess, who begins to explain about her species. Apparently, they inhabited the planet 60 million years ago, and they were far more advanced than humans now. Verm arrived and asked them to cast aside their bodies and assimilate with them. When they refused, war broke out for centuries. During that time, they lost the ability to procreate and only knew war by basically the end of it. When they finally fought Verm off, and they were prepared for them to come back eventually. So they went underground, and what they did, the weaker of their kind turned into the energy, the magma, and the stronger kind combine themselves together to become even stronger. And that's how that super weapon, whatever the gun thing is called, I can't think of it this second.
Star Destiny or
whatever.
Star Entity, I think is what they call it.
Oh, yes, right.
Yeah.
And that's how they made that. We also learned that the Nines are clones of 02, and I don't believe that's how cloning works. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just maybe
Your hair
I've read
color
too
would
much.
probably be the same at least.
Maybe I've read too much science fiction. They've actually got wrong the whole time, but whatever.
Well, also, like, that means that the princess is like 60 million years old. Like, damn, she looks good for being 60 million years old. Just saying.
She's still a lolly.
Yeah, no, she's a 60 million year old lolly. Yeah, dinosaur lolly.
Becomes perfect woman.
Yes.
Daru from Steins Gate is like, oh yeah.
God. So we go back to our squad trying to get to the bomb, but they get intercepted by the Nines, who quickly then get distracted by like killing Klaxosaurs, and then like one of the Nines gets attacked by Verm, and they're like all screaming, "I don't want to die!" And then they get like torn to shreds and killed.
Yeah,
nah, it's just
and like I feel nothing for them because they've just been assholes the whole time.
They've been
all
assholes,
of them.
yeah.
Not all of them die though. Like only some of them die.
Yeah, all but like 3 or so die.
We see 2 die here, but there's still like another 6 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when one of them is dying, it's getting like basically like raped by this like this pack of like rabid like verm like monsters,
whatever they are. Yeah,
that scene that like where it's getting like pushed down on the ground is straight lifted from End of Evangelion. Like straight lift, like 1-to-1, like all of the colors, like all of like the positions of everybody. And I'm just like, man, like they keep making these references and they're supposedly like homages to their own past work, but it's like,
and it's cool to pay homage. And I've never seen Evangelion, but like I keep hearing people are just like, man, they're like bordering on the line of like just ripping it off at this point.
Yeah. It's gotten to be a little too much where it's like, please do some new things. Like every cool thing in your anime should not be from a previous anime.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing something like Space Patrol Luluko, which is like a swan song to like everything like Trigger and Gainax has ever done.
Yeah, but that's what it is, so that makes it okay.
Like this is supposed to be a new show. Like I don't care if it's a collaboration of all these old Gainax people, like do a new thing, like do new stuff. Like I don't know. Anyway. I'm complaining.
Yeah,
too
so
much.
anyways, we see those 2 get killed, but then like I think it's maybe next episode we see like only 3 or 4 of them left alive.
I think it was 3. Yeah,
3,
something like that. Yeah.
I think there are 4.
So the squad
but because like there's like enough for two of the like pairs or whatever.
But 4 would make sense because there'd still be the pairs left.
Right.
So the squad ends up meeting up with Doc and 02, and they make their way to where Hero is. They end up getting chased by like some verm, and they come to like a collapsed hallway. So Ikuno uses all her power to blast away the debris, and it turns her hair white, which brings me way back to, was it Miku who had the white strands in her hair? And if I remember correctly, she was in that very stressful fight.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So they only took 14 episodes to explain that one.
Yeah. Well, they don't really explain it still. They're just kind of like, oh,
it
this
just
happened.
You have to pick up on it.
Yeah.
They're basically like it sucks your life force out, or like that's what you're supposed to assume. Like using the full power of your mech, like she did to break through that hallway, like sucked like all of her life force out. I don't know why. I guess Miku didn't use as much power when she did the crazy thing she did, and so she only got like 1 strand of gray hair.
But you know it why though, because they're like, oh, Ikuno, she's disposable. Like, let's have her be the one with the white hair. Like,
yes, that is exactly.
know
I don't
why.
even know if that relates to lifespan yet, though. It just turned her hair white. She doesn't.
I think it
they
does.
said something about rapid aging.
Yeah, because
so,
I think later they show like her being really tired and like her having all these lines on her face, and so I think it kind of does shorten her lifespan.
So, anyways, Kokoro, Mitsuru, Miku, and Zoromi stay behind to defend the now immobile Ikuno and Futoshi. Man, that's another Futoshi that's fat. thinking back to Hisone, to Masotan. Right?
Oh, you're right. Well, Futomomo. Yeah, so Futo must be a prefix, which means like fat or something.
Or big or something like that.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know why it took me this long to make that connection, but so that means Ichigo and Goro go ahead. They get 02 in the dock to the blue doors, and Ichigo and Goro go over like an edge, taking out some like random verm that was still trying to come after him. It turns out the dock's fake arm had been housing the princess's cells in it the whole time. Like the middle part was just like a glass tube of it.
Yeah.
And he uses it to open the doors. And then like one of the princess's like giant cobra things shows up and then just like gives 02 a ride to Hero.
Yeah.
And then when she gets there, she finds what she thinks is Hero dead, and like her horns grow super big out, and like she kisses him, and then like the princess is like astral projecting and sees this, and she's like, "All right, I'll give the rest of my energy to them as a last resort to save the planet." And then when she does that, like the 2 sync ratio just like goes through the roof, and the weapon shell blows away to reveal a giant Strelitzia called Strelitzia Apis? Have you ever used Opus or however you want to say it before?
Yeah.
I haven't.
I would say like Apis. I don't know, but who knows?
Yeah.
So then Hero then fires like a giant beam and like wipes out the entire Verm fleet. But the head honchos get away and say they will bring back her whole army and destroy the planet. And then there's just like this final shot is of a very lifeless looking 02, and her horns are like crumbling away and fall off. And also the dock got crushed by a giant slab of concrete, and when it hits him, it's like a bomb going off in an Olympic-sized pool of blood.
I just keep thinking like Verm is like the Team Rocket of this anime. They're just like, roar, we're coming back. Like, we'll be back again. Like, I don't know.
And what's surprising, we're not even going to wrap this show up for the next episode because they still got
two more. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yep. Yeah. So
and it was weird because this episode almost felt like an ending to me in certain ways. Like, of course, there's a couple things left hanging. Like, we need to figure out like what's wrong with 02 and all this stuff. But like, they almost defeat Verm. Like, they blow up their entire fleet in like one shot, and they're just like, well, we'll be back with our whole fleet.
Yeah, we were just like they were just like we were only whatever 3 from God damn that show that I don't like. Galactic Heroes. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're only fleet 3. Now we'll bring back all 18 fleets. And it's just like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, Leo, you hurt my soul when you say you don't like Galactic Heroes.
I do like that show, but it's whatever. If I probably wouldn't have watched it unless the podcast. So
okay.
All right, let's get into this last episode for today. So episode 22 of Darling FranXX is called Stargazers.
Okay. So
this is your synopsis. I almost started reading your
Bcom.
synopsis.
it is her synopsis. I felt like it was Bcom's too. I don't know why.
Let me just
Back
kick
off,
back and relax then.
Just hush your little mouth. There we go. Okay. So the war seems to be over. And without the council around, the surviving pilots are like trying to rebuild as best as they can with what they have. So you see them growing crops and everything. And then you find out 02 is basically a vegetable and she's unresponsive, but nobody knows why. And they don't have enough rations to really eat, like enough, like they can barely eat, but they're working to grow food. So when the rations do finally run out, like they won't starve to death. And the 9s are still around. Like I said, I think there's 4 of them left, but they're getting really sick and they've stopped eating because they say they need quote unquote maintenance, not food, which they don't really explain what that is. And then it like cuts to Gordo like talking to the adults and being like, we need maintenance on the 9s. Like we need these things. Like help us do these things. And like the adults.
Yeah, he wants like the water and the power stuff.
Yeah, and
like
he wants them to help
whatnot?
maintenance the 9s because like I guess they need maintenance. I don't know. And then they're like, no.
Well, remember,
okay, go ahead.
02 they used to bring in for maintenance and shit, and like they're all clones of 02. So whatever the maintenance they were doing to 02 is what they're doing for the 9s as well, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Like, obviously they need it because they look really sick, but like I really don't know what that is. But yeah, so they're like, we need these things, and the adults are like, well, Papa didn't order it, so we can't do it.
Yeah,
but
they're like freaking bedridden.
I know, and they're like,
which is a point
dead,
I'm going to bring up
bitches.
later.
Like, he is dead.
No, that's the other thing,
he
like,
cannot order shit. Like, think with your brain parts. And they're like, oh, well, we just exist to be like weird machine parts. So like, we're not going to do it, even though that makes no sense. I don't know.
So I don't even know if Papa's dead. So there's a weird thing at the end of the last episode where like the Ring Horny, which is like,
Papa was Verm, right?
I think so, yeah, because like when the Ring Horny flies off into the sky, like 9 Alpha is there, and he just like he hears the voice of the thing as it's flying away, saying like we'll come back, and he's like Papa. So yeah, I think that was the indication, is that like they were Verm, but I guess this like crazy Nana replacement did not get that message and is still like loyal to Papa.
I think Papa was like an in-between. Like he like was technically part of Verm, but he was like those other humans who were, but like didn't really know all of what was going on. Like he wasn't necessarily on Verm's side. Like he was just kind of
could be.
Because like later in that same episode, like the 2 adults, like the original Nana, not the replacement Nana, and like the guy, like come back, and they're like, oh, right before he died, he sent me this message, and he says like right before he died, so I think he is dead.
Okay, gotcha. I missed that part, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah. So anyway, like. So the other adults, other than the 2 that we're going to talk about later, like they just don't seem to have any brain. I don't know. So you see all these cuts all over 002's arms, like as all this is going on too, and it's not really clear. Like they're not telling you what's going on, but it kind of like the way they pose everything and like the kind of emo vibe makes you think like, is she cutting herself? And it's weird. Okay, so at this point, the Klaxosaurs and Verm start crashing into the Earth, and it's clear that, like, fighting is still happening above the Earth, just not, like, down here. So, like, in space, I guess. And I keep getting confused, because all the Klaxosaurs are supposed to be dead, I thought, but then yet they're fighting the Verms at the same time.
Just the Klaxosapiens.
Okay, so, like, the Klaxosaurs are different than the Klaxosapiens. So, like, the Klaxosaurs are still alive, but the intelligent Klaxosaurs are dead. So, okay. And then right as, like, we start realizing that the fighting is still going on in space, Kokoro collapses because, as we've all known for, like, 3 episodes, she's pregnant. So, apparently she can't pilot while pregnant, so the option is to have an abortion or, like, not pilot anymore.
Basically,
they clearly say you can't pilot while pregnant, so that's obvious.
So they ask like what
that gets in the way of all the fucking.
Yeah. So they ask what she wants to do, but like she needs time to think, and it's like, oh, this might be political. Like, And then Mitsuru looks like he's gonna pass out, and he's kind of freaking out because I think like he kind of remembers some of this now, but like not.
Yeah, I feel like he actually he somehow knows that like he's the father somehow.
Yes.
I believe
like,
that's what he thinks,
but he doesn't remember everything. Like at one point all of the guys are alone and they're like trying to like talk about what's gonna happen, and I expected them to be like, so y'all fucked, huh? But like I guess he doesn't really remember. So like that's kind of unfair.
But none of them know what the fuck sex is, so they wouldn't know to say that. That's the thing. They wouldn't be like, oh, so you fucked, because they don't know what the word fucked even means.
I just think it's so unfair. Like he's gonna have this kid and he doesn't even remember like having sex. Like he can't even remember the fun part. He's just gonna be stuck with the baby. Like,
yeah, true.
But at this point they do more info dumping, not like they haven't done enough. So like the crops are dying because of all the magma mining done like over hundreds of years that's drained the soil. So they can't, like, all the crops that they just planted are dying. And as I was talking about earlier, like the original Nana comes back with like the guy instructor, and they go downstairs and they find out like all of the like defective children or whatever have been like frozen. like
Cryostasis.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, you better not wake him up because there's no food. So like that's not gonna work out. Goro like tries to get Hiro to help him come up with a solution for the crops dying because like he doesn't want to starve, but Hiro's like kind of busy trying to deal with like crazy 02 who keeps like wandering off to stare like menacingly at the sky while like dramatically getting cut out of thin air and like bleeding and being all emo. Well, at least we know she's not cutting herself now. Like, at least there's that.
So it doesn't make it emo, okay?
To me, it's pretty emo.
It's pretty emo. It's pretty emo. So, like, Hiro puts his head to hers and gets this flash of her, like, fighting up in space and realizes,
Their
like,
horns touch.
Yeah.
That's how the connection is made.
Yeah, and realizes, like, oh, she's a vegetable because her consciousness is, like, trapped in the star entity. And he, like, is like, oh, no, I need to help her. Oh, and as a side snippet, and really it is, like 2 seconds of talk. Like, you learn that there's this place called Mistiltine that contains...
Oh, no, that's their base. That's their old base where they stayed forever.
Yeah.
Okay, so it contains soil from before when we fucked up the earth. And so if they plant crops there, it will be fine, and they can eat it and everything. So you're like, awesome, we solved that problem. So Hiro decides he needs to go back up in space and help 02 fight. And Goro gets really pissed off that he won't stay and help the rest of them like restart their new peaceful life. And they argue about this, and Hiro like apparently never thinks about how any of the rest of them feel. And at this point, like Hiro's eyes start glowing and his horns get all blue, and I'm like, yeah, Bcom's like onto something with the whole red Oni blue Oni thing because they're really leaning into that now.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah. And then after a little time, the rest of the group's like, well, I guess we should go with Hiro to fight in space because eventually one of the sides will win. Either the Verm will win or the Klaxosaurs will win. And whichever side win is going to come back to the Earth and we're going to have to fight them like eventually because neither of them like us. So like it does actually...
no, they're actually kind of on a understanding with the Klaxosaurs at this point.
Are they though?
Well, it's sort of.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think they're on an understanding.
Are still there, and it's not attacking them.
Well, but they're only not attacking them because they're focused on attacking Verm. I think if they beat Verm, they would probably go back to attacking the rest of them.
Well, 02 would be the next princess, I think.
I mean, but like,
I guess so.
I don't know.
She kind of
think
mind melded with the previous
It's kind
one.
of implied that like whichever one wins, they're gonna have to deal with it eventually, and so they should go up there.
I don't feel that at all. Well,
I mean,
then
that's
they
what they
would
say,
go
though.
up there. No, well, they're going up there to attack the Verm. So if they were going up there to attack both of them, then that would explain what your thought process is. But I don't think it's that.
The way I read it was that like Verm was basically like infiltrating the human race, and so the Klaxosaurs were fighting the humans as long as like Ape and Verm were like controlling the human race. But now that Verm has left and been forced to leave Earth entirely, I don't think that the Klaxosaurs actually have a problem with the humans anymore. Because they're not under the control of Verm
I believe,
anymore.
Yeah, and they also both have a joint effort in saving the Earth and not getting it blown up. So
basically,
I think that if the humans agree not to keep doing the magma, like keep mining it, that they can come to an understanding. But I don't think they've come to that understanding yet. So I think that there's probably still a chance that they would fight, but like them helping out in space and then like talking with them afterwards would definitely help that situation. Yeah, and then also like it's good to make sure that Klaxosaurs win in any excuse, because if the Verm win, then like they're definitely gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So it all works out. Like they probably should deal with it, to be fair. Like I mean, it is important that they move on and like build crops and build up their civilization again, but it's also important that they make sure they're not gonna die, you know. So
True.
But yeah, so they all decide they're gonna go up there, except for Kokoro, who's like pregnant, and so she has to stay behind. Also the Nines are coming. Apparently, they're like, we're coming too. So,
Yeah, and there's like 3. I think there's only 3 I remember seeing at this point.
Yeah, now I remember there definitely are only 3 of them who are still alive.
Oh, okay,
And
so-
it's an odd number for an important reason.
well, because
yeah.
Kokoro is gone. So I guess like,
Well, no, but Mitsuri stays behind also.
oh,
yeah,
does he?
There's
Okay.
another reason there's 3 of them.
Oh yeah, because I
which
guess
is a spoiler
02
for the next
missing.
episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh god.
There's probably going to be some like awkward like sex switching or something. I don't know.
So it's like okay.
Bcom.
I was like getting so frustrated with Hiro in this episode because like his whole thing is like, if 02 won't smile for me, I might as well be dead. And I was just like, oh my god, I can't take this. Along with like 02 just like, remember what 02 used to be as a character? Like she was like a fiery, like interesting like character. Like she was like confident in herself, like in control of all the time. Now she's just like a meek, like everyday waifu, and like now she's just like completely catatonic, like staring up at the stars. Like her mind is literally orbiting Mars.
Okay, but this is
like,
this
God
is
damn.
my theory. So like, guys want a little spunk, right? But then once she became the head waifu and like all of the fandom focused on her, like she can't be fiery anymore because that's not what otaku guys want. They want a sweet, meek girl who like used to be fiery, but who they tamed with their raging dick, right? Like that's what they want.
with the raging gentleman boner.
Yes.
And speaking of raging dicks, like I was like legitimately interested in like the whole subplot of like, oh, we need to like reseed the earth and like replant and forge like a new life together now that like the Klaxosaurs are off for fighting in space. But then like Hero's like, you know, I can't get my dick wet, so we all need to go to space so I can get my dick
That's
wet.
what Kokoro and Mitsuri are being left behind to do, is to repopulate the planet. So
Yeah, Kokoro literally stays behind to give birth to a new world.
Well, but
that
like
is
I
basically
said-
what that is.
Like I said, it really isn't about like him getting his dick wet. Like there are legitimate reasons why they would want to go up
And he-
there.
Well, yeah, Verm can
honestly,
come back. Yeah.
he's never actually gotten his dick wet yet. So
You know, he's got
I
to
don't know, they
get it
scream
in.
and orgasm all the time when they're in that FranXX. I don't know.
Okay, the height of the emo in this episode for me was like the scene at the end where like he's sitting there with her and he knows that she's like fighting in space now and he's like holding her hand and she's just like catatonic. You remember that scene? That's the height of emo.
Yes.
That's like
it's also the scene where they touch the horns. Like you see like some of the verm like attached to the face of the giant weapon, and they explode, and she gets cuts across her face.
Yep.
And that was one of the big ones. Yeah.
They might as well have
Body
played
and
like
mind are connected.
They might as well have played like an AFI song like while that scene was happening. Like, you know.
True.
But it's like, it's just painfully clear at this point, like this whole thing is a setup so that they can rip off Gurren Lagann and Gunbuster in the last 2 episodes by going to space and fighting the aliens.
Oh my god,
Like,
dude! I'm so getting. Earlier on, I got Gurren Lagann vibes, and they kind of tapered off more towards the middle. But now that the end's coming, I'm just like, is this going to end exactly like Gurren Lagann? And if it does,
tune in to find out.
If it does, I don't know if I'm going to like that. I mean, like I said earlier, you can pay homage to something and be good, but god damn, you're just ripping it off at this point if it ends the same way. Because Gurren Lagann was the first anime to bring a tear to my eye, and that was the ending.
Oh.
So
It is a good show.
I will take it personally.
I mean, it's a decent show. I just can't wait. Like, I'm excited to see how it ends, obviously, because we're invested at this point. But I also am really excited for these kinky hijinks that apparently are happening in the next episode. So,
Oh, yeah.
let's go. Bring it on.
All right. So I think that's it for this podcast. Theo, why don't you
All right.
take us out of here?
Everybody, thank you for listening as always. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on new podcasts or videos. And also, if you really, really love us, do some reviews on iTunes because we'd love to read those. And follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for updates as well. We will see everybody later.
Bye.
Peace.